Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. I already forget what episode this is.
215.
That's what I said. 215, episode 215. I have to type it in too. I'm Steve Crane. Nate Hale is here. We have a special guest tonight joining us momentarily. I do want to, before we get started here, I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in and for listening on the audio. We have been updating the audio recently on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. So if you guys listen to the audio, we appreciate the support. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And then I want to thank everyone that's on patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. You guys can do monthly contributions, 3 different tiers. You get some swag after so many months, depending on what tier you do. But we appreciate that greatly, as well as anyone that sent us money for a bottle, like Venmo @bourbonandbs. That's the way you can get that to us. And then there's some new apparel on buyjack.com/bourbonandbs. The raglan, the 3/4 sleeves.
Yeah.
So now it comes in the black with the white sleeves and the gold logo.
Okay.
It comes in the black and gray combo. And now it's going to be black and blue and black and red. So those are up there.
So you're telling me there's more shirts I have to buy?
Yeah, you don't have to. I'm just saying there's more shirts to buy.
Well, it is coming up into 3/4 season.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's baseball season, baby.
That's right.
I also want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. Trying to find it here. In Columbus, Ohio. Appreciate that. We've got the Joya de Nicaragua Antonio Dark Corojo for the featured cigar. So thank you, Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Check them out. They also mail things as well. If you don't have a local brick and mortar cigar shop, check them out. Altadis USA, we've got the H. Upman Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez for the follow-up smoke for part 2. And also Be a Cigar Company with the gold and silver now available, both from Nicaragua. The gold is from Plasencia, and the silver is made by Eric Espinosa at his La Zona factory. It's probably the fastest I've gone through those.
I wasn't trying to slow you down.
Without further ado, tonight the featured bottle is from Detroit City Distillery. I do want to say I'm happy to have Garrett on here, but this bottle was actually donated to the podcast from Jerry Dzenski. So he was up in Michigan, found this, and brought it back, which is what led us to reach out to the distillery, and they've been fantastic in getting it on the show tonight. So Garrett Passiak here. I'm going to bring him on the screen. Garrett, what's going on?
Hey, gentlemen. Steve, Nate, thanks for having me on. Welcome, everybody.
Absolutely. Garrett is the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery. We've got the Butcher's Cut Bourbon as the featured drink tonight. And so the first part, like I said, Garrett, like we kind of talked briefly. I mean, this is where we're going to talk about you and the distillery, talk about the bourbon. We're going to smoke the cigar. We'll review the cigar. I know you're not allowed to light up a cigar with all that equipment, obviously, as you talked about. I think that'd be frowned upon. But yeah, we're going to be talking about that in the first part. And then at the end of part 1, we rate the cigar, the whiskey, and the pairing. So you can obviously chime in on the whiskey portion of that. And it's 10 out of 10 being the best. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, without further ado, man. So Garrett, tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, yourself. I know you're there to represent Detroit City Distillery, but let's kind of, have the nice pleasantries here, and let's hear from you and what's going on, man.
Yeah, so history, so always had a passion for the city of Detroit. I moved down here 22 years ago, went to university down here, Wayne State University, and my life path went in a weird way to where I ended up somehow in corporate human resources for a technology company at a very young age, and my job literally was to hire, and the worst part about it, fire people. But I did like corporate events. I used to be an event coordinator, that kind of thing. And then what ends up happening is I was bartending through college, always had a passion for the service industry. My first bartending gig, I make the joke, was when I was 10 years old, being in charge of the Bloody Mary bar with my older cousin pouring the tomato juice in there.
Nice.
So that was always there with me. I think it was a godsend when the company folded and they let me go and they sent me packing. I went to a local watering hole that I've been frequenting since I was in college down here. And the owner said, "What happened? Why are you wearing your suit and taking a shot of Jameson and drinking a Stroh's at 10 o'clock in the morning?" I said, "I just got let go." And he said, name 5 people at the bar and what they all drink. And I did exactly that. I said, John's going to be drinking a Miller High Life. I know that Bradford's going to be drinking the Sambuca on the rocks. Boom, boom, boom. And again, this was 12 years ago. And he said, you start Monday, and I never went back. Worked all over the city in like hole in the walls, fine dining, and then opened up, kind of consulted opening up a bar down here, and then found my real passion. Always a mega fan of Detroit City Distillery. So I was a patron at Detroit City Distillery, actually. Always going there. And there was this big, huge festival. We're located in the Eastern Market. I can talk about that later. Long story short, though, it was a huge, packed 4-person line behind the bar. The manager kind of waves me down, tells me to come over here. And I said, sweet, I get to skip the line. And she goes, get your fucking ass behind here and start working right now. Ended up working till 5 in the morning. And I've been an employee ever since for about almost 5 years now. So.
You literally just show up places and people throw you jobs. Like, it's not bad.
I mean, I'm humble, but yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So.
I mean, you didn't have your resume with you at the bar.
He wasn't showing up for a job interview.
That's what I'm saying. You just like show up to a bar, like, hey, you start. You're like, okay, I guess I have to now.
I wish it was that easy.
They say it doesn't pay to drink in the morning.
Right. There's a funny story about that too. I went to go interview. I didn't go to interview. I had someone. It's a fine dining restaurant ahead of its time here in Detroit. A lot of like French cuisine. Okay. And a buddy of mine said, you should come check this out, come have lunch, have a drink, etc. So I'm going all like around, I'm running errands, and I'm like, okay, now it's time to go get lunch. I'm wearing a Black Flag t-shirt, jeans, and like Etnies skateboard shoes. I go in, I go to sit down. He said, yeah, the owner's over there right now for your interview. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? And so I go there and I sit there and I interview and I talk to him, and he said, do you have a resume? And I just shyly say, like, I don't have it right now. I had a problem with my printer, kind of BS a little bit. And he said, that's okay. You can email it to me. I walk out. I'm like, that was a total bomb. The executive chef is smoking a cigarette, and he looks at me and he says, excuse me. I said, yeah. He goes, did you just show up to an interview with a Black Flag t-shirt and no interview? I said, I did. He just goes, hired.
It's not even, you're not joking anymore. Like,
yeah. But no, that's service.
Jobs like on a weekly basis. Is this how this goes?
I mean, honestly, not that I know the conversation's getting towards the end, but pre-COVID, it was kind of yes and no. Now it's like every single day. Where's the cook? Can you work? Can you not work? Can you work opening day? That kind of thing. So there is a labor shortage. So there is an advantage if you're looking for those kind of jobs. But
sure.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
So.
Well, that's impressive. I got to be honest. You just show up to a place and then you start working there, and then here you are.
He shows up to a bar.
Yeah.
Gets a job at the bar. Shows up at a distillery and gets a job at the distillery. Like, holy cow.
There's a lot of people that listen to podcasts like this that would love for that to happen when they take tours.
Yeah, I bartended for them for a good 2 years though, so I always think it's important you get your grasp on things, like the quality of the product. You have a passion for it, and then sure. I got busted just being excited about stuff, and that's how I moved up to, we always make the joke in the industry: you open your mouth and you get thrown into something different. But this was exciting for me. Go ahead, to advance your career, to talk about the product, that kind of thing, and not come home at 4 a.m. every day, 7 days a week. So that was nice.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, that's how I got in the cigar industry a little bit too. Is that I was a customer, and then I got let go from a over decade career, and the shop owner's like, well, what do you need to make? Yeah, here we are.
10 years later.
9 years later.
Yeah.
But so
that's
tell us a little
story,
about
10 years later. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No. So Detroit City Distillery Butcher's Cut Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It is distilled and bottled by Detroit City Distillery LLC in Detroit, Michigan. And this bottle is 100 proof, and that's all on that front label there. But you're standing in front of your still. So people that are listening on the audio, one of the reasons why he may have a little bit of an echo when you're listening to him, Garrett, speak, is the fact that he is literally standing in the facility in front of a still, and there's going to be a bit of an echo there. So it's quite a sight, actually. And for those listening, let me see if I can kind of
25,000 square foot.
25,000 square feet. And so I'm going to have you, Garrett, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about Detroit City Distillery and what it is that we're actually drinking and how it came to fruition.
That's why I really like how Butcher's Cut Bourbon landed in your lap. You said it was donated, and that's amazing, especially for this description of it. And the reason being is Detroit City Distillery was started, again, a little over 7 years ago by 8 friends that have known each other since the age of 3 out of a small town called Bath, Michigan. Yes, I'm being the Michigander, right outside our capital, Lansing, right there. There's absolutely nothing there. It was farm country. It was easy to kind of sometimes get some booze with like a fake ID, but they started getting sick of it. And one of our master distiller to this day, they're in high school, mid to late 90s. And they said, you ever hear of these folks in Bourbon County, Kentucky that started making their own moonshine and then eventually hopped on the bourbon train? And they said, well, why don't we go ahead and do that? They're like, fuck it, let's go ahead and do it. And so they literally, remember the AOL dial-up connection way back in the day, took that annoying noise. Took them about 45 minutes to an hour to download a PDF on what they called, was entitled prune juice, all right? So the prune juice was a recipe of grapes, yeast, sugar, water. Simplistically, their parents are asleep. They go ahead and they print that off, delete the file. They run off into the hills of Bath, Michigan, and they just give it a go as high schoolers. And they literally made prune juice. And what ends up happening, becomes so popular with their friends, they end up making a business out of it. Stash houses were under their beds at their parents' house. As we all know, as bourbon drinkers, distillers, even if you're just getting excited about distilling, popping a cap on a bottle of moonshine before it's fermented, not a wise idea. One of the friends, Michael, his mother was vacuuming while he was at school. Shattered glass blew all over the place. So they all got grounded. And what ends up happening is they grow up technically, and key factor JP, again, our master distiller, ends up getting a PhD in microbiology, and they decide what everyone wanted to do, as we all know as drinkers, 12 years ago, what was popular? A race to the hops. Let's go ahead and make a microbrewery. That's what everyone wanted to do. Hoppiest, funkiest, craziest KBS stout. So he said, wait a second, let me go work for one first. He was smart. Standard operations and procedures down, let me get the recipes right. One of the 8 friends gets engaged. They go partying, camping back in their own hometown. And JP has an epiphany and says, I want to go ahead, and I think that we can go ahead. I have faith in Michigan climate. I have faith in Michigan grains. And I have faith in like the way that Michigan can go ahead and age a young whiskey. I think we can go ahead and possibly go down and win an award in Bourbon County, Kentucky. He didn't want to outsource. Huge, fan of Michigan. So what he ends up doing is they shoot across the street where we're at right now, and they fire up a 50-gallon copper pot still. And they start making bourbon. Super young bourbon. The good problem that they ran into is people are sipping on this, and they say, wait a second. This is one of the most amazing bourbons. Are you faking it? Are you outsourcing it? It's only 18 months at the time. The bottle that you have in your hand right here is 2 years, 4 months, right around there. So what ends up happening is they say, just for shits and giggles, why don't we go ahead, guys, and submit this to the American Distillation Institute, blind taste testing contest, Bourbon County, Kentucky. No politics involved. Let's see what they think down there. Votes are tallied up. It ends up winning best young bourbon in the United States. Okay.
Wow.
Got featured in Whiskey Advocate magazine. USA Today, I believe, called it Michigan's best bourbon. Once that happened, they ran into the shit show of people coming down there and just bottles flying off the shelf. They panicked, obviously, a little bit. And they said, well, what do we do? Let's just go ahead and walk across the street. I'll only settle for a larger production facility. I'm not going to outsource. You can't outsource an award-winning recipe.
No.
Super Bowl just happened. You can't buy wings that someone asked you to make homemade the next year. So that's exactly what he went ahead and did. Walked across the street, and where we're standing at right now, this is actually an old abandoned Stroh's ice cream factory from Prohibition.
Wow.
Whole space was empty, leased it out, fired this 500-gallon copper pot still. Most of you familiar with Copper and Brass Works Incorporated from Louisville, Kentucky. And they started making this Butcher's Cut Bourbon even more to a higher scale.
And that is the original product.
Yep, that's the original product. Original mash bill is 68% corn, 27% rye, 5% barley. We actually got booed when we accepted that award in Bourbon County, Kentucky, because the judges didn't realize they voted for someone outside their backyard for that actual award.
No shit.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like, pardon my ignorance, I'm from Michigan. It's like Detroit losing a Coney dog contest in Detroit to Bourbon County. It'd be like Ohio losing, what are those candies you have, the chocolate with the red?
Buckeyes.
Yeah, it'd be like losing a Buckeye cook-off to Bourbon County, Kentucky in Ohio. That's why we got booed. But the taste speaks for itself. Yeah.
It's also why they do blind tasting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what's cool about it and interesting is it's called the Butcher's Cut Bourbon, and a lot of individuals say, who's that on the front? That is our head distiller, JP, John Paul. That's his grandfather. He used to be a butcher and a whiskey salesman in the Easton market, just kind of like smuggling, doing like the bootleg kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if you read on the back of the bottle, I can't give this story enough justice because that's a testimony from our master distiller about his grandfather. But apparently he was going ahead and he cut his finger off on a whiskey barrel.
Here, let me read this to everyone because it's pretty neat. It says, a timeless spirit from a storied past. My grandfather lost his finger making a whiskey barrel. He traded his motorcycle to bootleggers for a rifle. And after World War II, he began his career as a butcher in Detroit's Eastern Market next to the slaughterhouse that I transformed into our distillery. To honor his life and legacy, I created Butcher's Cut Bourbon using the finest cuts of corn, rye, and roasted barley that are aged with hand-smoked Michigan Northern oak. The result is a bourbon that is timeless and true with exceptional character, just like the man that inspired it. And that's Master Distiller John P. Jerome. And this says aged 2 years. That is one hell of a quick story there.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, those are big events. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a bootlegger, yeah. No, he traded his motorcycle to bootleggers for a rifle.
For a rifle, yep. I mean, you gotta stay safe in those bootlegging days.
Well, I just like, these are just like talking points. I see that's like being like a bullet thing. Let's talk about my grandfather. Yeah. Well, he lost a finger making a whiskey barrel. What else? Oh, well, he traded a motorcycle to bootleggers for a rifle. And then there's World War II.
Yeah.
It's like, just like, okay, like, sounds like you went through some shit.
Yeah. And that's what we like here. There's always a story behind the bottle. Obviously, this is the best story behind it, and that's basically why we're here. This is our number one thing that got us on the map with that award. We got our rye that won some awards in San Francisco. We got a new 4-grain, but this is really what you have in your hands.
Let me,
in my opinion, the staple. Yeah.
Let me put you bigger on the screen here because I kind of want to see what bottles you have. So what's the one in the middle, or what's the one we have? The Butcher's Cut straight.
So the one you have right here, this is the Butcher's Cut. That's the one that won Best Young Whiskey in the United States. Also submitted 2020, won a silver medal in the San Francisco Spirit Award contest.
Wow. This
is our homegrown rye, which won double gold in San Francisco in 2020, the San Francisco Spirits contest. That's a 97% Michigan homegrown rye. 3% barley mash there.
I need to find out how to get my hands on that.
Yeah.
We'll stay in touch. I can get you one for sure. It's funny. The reason we submitted this is always a staff favorite, especially when I was back bartending and even today. This seems to be the staff drink of choice during your shift drink.
Well, so I'm kind of
rye.
Yeah. So sometimes I'm kind of the rye guy, and the first ever whiskey on the podcast that I ever gave a perfect 10 score to was a rye. So I'm definitely always looking forward to a really good rye.
Nice. All right. What else do you have on the table?
So, and right here, so this is our newest addition. This is, again, 2 years, 4 months as well. This is our 4-grain bourbon. All right.
Okay.
So as we taste our butcher's cut in a bit, great. They're both 100 proof, but as whiskey drinkers, you know, sometimes wheat's going to add a little bit more of that mellowness to it.
Yeah.
So what they did, so the mash bill again on this, 68% corn, 27% rye, 5% barley. Mash bill on this one, 57% corn, 19% rye, and then you've got 12% barley and 12% wheat.
Okay.
This has more of a mellow taste to it. So for bourbon drinkers like myself, I like that nice kick that we're going to get with the sweetness along with that like smokiness with this. This mellows it out for those individuals that don't necessarily want that nice little like bourbon sweet or spicy kick to it. But what's funny is if they're both 100 proof, they said, this is lighter. I'm like, no, it's not.
It's just
That's
balanced.
what it has to do with the recipe, correct?
Interesting.
So the bottle we have is batch 40. Which batch are you guys on now?
It looks like this one that I just grabbed here. We are on batch 55.
Okay.
What's the one on the your right?
The one on my right.
Yeah.
So that's Butcher's Cut Bourbon.
Okay.
That's the rye. So this is just a duplicate of this. This is
I got
kind
you.
of that's our trophy. This is in case you need me to pour some more. So.
And so 3 products, is that the portfolio, or what else does Detroit City Distillery put out?
We've got a limited edition, not a limited edition. We have people's response to a wheated whiskey, like hardcore wheated whiskey. We have what we call a Bloodline Whiskey. You can only get that here. That's 60% Michigan winter wheat, 40% malted barley, 7% of that barley is like smoked barley. So in our whiskey profiles, we've got 4.
Okay.
In our vodka profile, we only have 1, and that's 88 proof corn vodka. Basically invented so you can make a perfect Bloody Mary to where it's not proof down from the ice and the tomato juice. So it goes from 88 to 80 as opposed to your normal 80 proof vodka that goes down to about 75. We've all been to those restaurants or parties where it's like, can you put more vodka in this drink? So that's the only vodka that we have like permanently. And then we actually have, believe it or not, 7 different styles of gins, 2 staple ones, and then the other 5 are collaborated with Detroit chefs here. Restaurants love gin, chefs love gin because they're versatile. So that's our portfolio.
Wow. So it is not huge, but you got some staples there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Shannon, we have a audience here in the studio / garage. But yeah, Shannon, go ahead with your question here.
Hey Gary, what's up, buddy? Love your style.
Hey Shannon, how you doing?
Looking good, brother. Hey, where are you in? You say Michigan?
Yeah, Detroit.
Oh, okay.
It's called Detroit City Distillery. Detroit, Michigan. It's not just a clever name.
I will fight you.
Right.
He's in Scottsdale, Arizona.
It's super easy. We're just right outside. This is a fun fact. Eastern Market's the largest open farmers market in North America. But if you're ever watching, the Tigers or the Lions or the Pistons, we're in a stadium district. So when you see the top of Ford Field where the Lions play, I could run there right now in 5 minutes across the street.
Oh,
so we're literally across the street from Ford Field.
Now, do you do we call it visits and all that good stuff?
Like tours, There's tours. That's earlier on in the show here that you could hear people kind of in the background. Yeah. He said that there was like a wedding party. There was like, so they do tours. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's
we do public tours. Yeah.
I'm gonna be up your way here at the end of July, man. I'd love to swing through and check that out.
Let's get information. And if you're coming up here this way, tour around the house. I give them on Saturdays, so I give them to the public every Saturday.
There you go, man.
Then I'll grab a bunch of bottles for the boys. So.
That's right, man.
Yep, there you go, Shannon. Yeah, we'll exchange information, and then just let me know when you're coming. We'll make sure you get in here for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, last time I was in your neck of the woods there, I saw my Bears lose to the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. Yeah.
We get one win though, don't we?
That it was years ago. Don't not yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It was years ago. Yeah,
Yep.
not your current team.
Right.
Good luck to you.
Right.
So is bourbon your spirit of choice, personally?
Yes, definitely. My spirit of choice. I like bourbon. Number one, just the nostalgia of it. Two, the palate on it. I have that. If I'm not drinking bourbon, I'm gonna go to an Islay Scotch.
Okay.
Right? Like I'll go to a Lagavulin. I'll go that route. So it's like that sweet and savory. So bourbon is my go-to. I like the history behind it and just the journey that you take when you go ahead and sip it. So bourbon's definitely my go-to.
And you said that you are currently working on, I don't know if this was on the show or before the show, but you're currently working on some newer projects that have more age on them. Is this correct for your bourbon line?
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah. Are you shooting for 4 years or?
Yeah, we are shooting for 4 years. We do have a whiskey club that we just did a limited edition release that was the 4 years bottle and bond.
Okay.
It was a limited edition bottle.
Yeah. And
of course, you're going to go ahead and give that to them. They're going to sample it. And it got rave reviews. And of course, you do have some barrels, on this side. I actually am. This is half Rickhouse behind me.
I got you.
But they're definitely sitting in there. And you obviously want to take advantage. We got our original barrel that says 2015 on it.
Okay.
And we're just waiting on a fun release for that. But it's almost like concept cars to where, of course, I'm the brand ambassador, but I'm not going to find out exactly what it is until the master distiller wants to do it. Because in a hypothetical evil world, I can be taking pictures and being like,
sure.
For this. And then it's like, that's not ready yet, Garrett. Why are you posting that on social? That kind of thing. So.
I had how many barrels do you guys have in your warehouse there / Rickhouse? You know what I mean? So
we've got where I'm sitting at right now. You're sitting on the ground floor. We've got about, and I'm going to guesstimate right here. We've got about possibly, I would say about 100 barrels down here, just on the main floor where people come in and take tours. Then in back of me, you've got a little sub basement. I would say almost 350.
Okay.
And then upstairs where the wedding event is, so right above me, you're looking at a lot of the bespoke barrels that I'd say right around the range of maybe 50.
Okay.
So I'd say in total, you're looking at about 450 to possibly 500 right now.
Yeah, wow. And those are made out of Michigan oak is what it said, right?
Yeah, and then Crow's Nest Coopery. Crow's Nest Coopery right outside of Grand Rapids. We got a guy named Barrel Joe.
Barrel Joe.
Barrel Joe, that's what his name is. If you look up Crow's Nest Coopery, Google it, Barrel Joe, he's got this fun technique because we're a micro distillery. We're not like the big guys where you can like pump it through. He's got this awesome kind of like sawdust recipe that's flammable, that's natural. He puts it into one of these barrels and he'll sit there for a half hour, make sure it's charred in 4 times. So American charred, 4 times oak, right outside of Grand Rapids.
Nice. I like it.
And you're using the traditional 53-gallon barrels. You're not doing all right. Because we've had some of the whiskeys on before where they've been young and they try and combat that with doing smaller barrels or pressurizing it and trying to make it age quicker than nature would allow. So actually happy to see that you guys are using the traditional size barrels.
Yeah. And traditional barrels, and a lot of individuals too, they talk about there's always that connotation. I won't drink that bourbon that we're sipping on because it's not 4 years, it's bottle and bond. And what JP and a lot of individuals were explaining to me is Michigan's climate is way different from Bourbon County, Kentucky. So you put in the White Dog Lightning in there, and then in Bourbon County, Kentucky, summer, spring, winter, fall. That's what 3.5 years to 4 years does. All right. You're from, Columbus, Midwest. We know it's 50 degrees today. Then it can be negative 20, and then 30 degrees on Easter and 80 degrees on Christmas. So why?
We went from 70 to about snow showers in a matter of 4 days recently.
It was 2. It was Wednesday to Friday. Yeah. Went from 78 degrees Wednesday, snowed Friday.
Exactly. Yeah. So the barrels here are doing that. So what happens in 2 years, Bourbon County, Kentucky takes about 3 to 4 years. That's why the judges are like, oh shit, we didn't pick Bourbon County, Kentucky. This is good, even though it's 18 months at the time.
Nice. Well, what do we think of it? We talked about this now for about 30 minutes. I'm sure. I mean, this is great information. And I mean, again, like Shannon already is planning a trip up there. You make me want to come up there for sure. Check out the facility and try some of the other stuff. This is distributed, but I mean, it's not in Ohio.
It's not in Ohio, no. We are just Michigan primarily, and we do have a small little footprint in Illinois, being Chicago.
Okay. Is there a plan? I know I'm like delaying what we think about this. I literally was like, let's talk about the whiskey. Now I'm asking questions. But is there a plan to increase it to more of a state by state? You guys are looking to get bigger, or is this the goal for right now is to make sure that your bread and butter of Michigan, a little bit of Illinois, that you are going to be a hometown, bottle, or are there plans to expand distribution?
The plans, the current plans are, it's kind of a fun, we're not 100% sure.
Yeah.
This is our only still that we got. And so the current plan, from my understanding, is we're going to keep the quality and keep it like home in Michigan with that little bit of footprint in Chicago.
Okay.
And once we start to expand and get a lot of like more requests, can we get another facility? And as we all know, crossing state lines, you get the suit and ties, you get the liquor control commissions involved.
Oh yeah, it's a bitch. Yeah, absolutely.
Who's not going to be a pain in the ass to let us do it? Who is going to be a pain in the ass? Who's going to like fight?
Ohio is a rough one.
Yeah, Ohio's one.
Yeah, you have some friends from Toledo that come here a lot.
Yeah. Hey, another party. What's going on?
Yeah,
going on, everyone?
They'll drive 50 minutes up here to the factory to get some stuff.
But it's distributed all throughout Michigan. I mean, I know. So in Ohio, I don't know if you're familiar. We're a state-run liquor agency. So I mean, it's highly, I don't say it's regulated, but I mean, as far as distribution allocations and stuff like that, I mean, it goes all over. But it's based on what the liquor stores order, and then it kind of goes from there. But are you guys all over Michigan? So I mean, if you just pop over the border. Not saying we're bootlegging or anything like that, but I mean, if you just pop over the border, I mean, is it mainly Detroit or is it all over Michigan?
Literally, when you pop over the border, right over there in Monroe, you can just have a ball.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're in stores all over Monroe, right there.
Perfect.
Been there.
Yeah.
Monroe, Michigan. Yeah.
Nice
little town.
All right, now let's talk about what we think about this bottle. Nate, I'm gonna start with you.
All right. So just based on experience, and when I read the back of this and saw it was a 2-year bottle, younger distillery, I didn't have very high expectations. And again,
sorry,
that's based on experience, not based on your guys'
Oh
product.
no, I get it all the time. Trust me, I don't get offended. I'm good.
All right, let's move on to Shannon.
I didn't say anything bad.
Go ahead.
No, so like on the nose, I got this very light kind of honey and clove on the nose, which also carried over onto the palate. What really surprised me, even though there was a little sharpness to it on the palate initially, it's very oily. I was not expecting this to be as thick and oily as it is, and it just hangs on the glass for a long time. And then it's actually got this nice, pleasant, like vanilla and anise finish to it.
Wow.
Yep.
And I'm telling you.
But what really
hired by a distillery here soon.
What really has surprised me, and I've stopped smoking the cigar a little bit, and I even cleansed my palate with water, because as I was drinking this, like it kept getting better. It kept getting a little smoother, a little thicker, a little sweeter. So I didn't know if it was because of the cigar or what. So I like put the cigar down, took a big sip of water and swished it all around to just completely clear my palate, and then go back to the whiskey again. And that first sip, very similar to the first sip I had at the start, but then again, not going to the cigar and just keep sipping on the whiskey. it builds back up to that thicker, oilier, sweeter texture.
Yeah.
That was not there initially. So it's actually gotten a lot better for me as we've been sitting here.
I think some of the sharpness you're talking about on it, whether it be that it is a slightly younger, bottle, I think I agree. It goes away. Like the sharpness.
It does.
And I think you're right. I've been smoking this cigar. I think so. Garrett, I don't know if you're familiar with Joya de Nicaragua, the Antonio Dark Corojo that we're smoking, but it is a pretty stout cigar. I mean, it's a pretty bold blend of tobacco. So I mean, I didn't know much about this bottle, so when I picked the cigar for tonight, I was like, well, we haven't done this. I love this cigar, and it was almost for me like a test for this bottle in a different sense, because I'm like, this cigar's got a lot going on here, and didn't know much about we didn't try this before today, so but I agree, it kind of does. It almost like once your palate gets that initial sip, which it's any bottle of any sip of whiskey, you're gonna. It kicks those nerve endings, you know what I mean? And it almost has that burn or the heat on a lot of them. And being 100 proof, this does, I mean, it to me, I would have probably, we play a nerdy game after we close the cigar shop on Saturdays, where Nate will have a bottle and we'll guess like the proof, we'll guess some of those things. I wouldn't have guessed 100 on this. I would have probably guessed maybe 90.
I'd have been in like the 85 to 90 range.
Yeah. I mean, because it is a very nice, it's got that little bit of, like you call the sharpness, I think, right?
Initially on the palate.
It's got a little bit of that, but it doesn't have much heat.
No.
When it goes down, it doesn't really have what they call, and I don't know if it's because it's not from there, but I don't get that Kentucky hug. You know what I mean? It's very pleasant sipper. It's a little bit lighter.
Mm-hmm.
But in a good way. It's not like that, it's like, well, there's not much there. Like it's got that sweetness. You said honey. I can see that a little bit. Almost like the floral notes too.
Yeah, probably because of that high rye content.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's very pleasant. I mean, this is something that, for something different for people that haven't been up to Michigan or obviously in the Chicago area, and you can get your hands on something. This is something to try, I would say, for sure.
What does this normally run a bottle retail?
Retail, the standard is $50.
Okay.
Which is about
so $49.96 I think is the state minimum that they carry. So
yeah. And so what we found too is that a lot of the like you said, micro distilleries or smaller operations, a lot of the local ones here in Columbus, especially, or in Ohio, same thing. Like their standard bottles coming out are that 40, 50, whatever. I mean, it's like, it's not this mass produced thing. So you figure you're going to be paying that $40-$50 for something like that for your everyday bourbon, if you will. I'm sure your limited editions are a little bit higher than that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a pretty standard price.
Yeah. I don't think it's outrageous, and then I do think it's interesting. I would say 90% of the time I do tastings with this, I do tell people it's 100 proof. Then when they ask like what's the heat on that, I say 100 proof. They say get the hell out of here. Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's super pleasant. I mean, I'd be interested to try something like this. Do you guys ever do anything like in limited runs? Anything higher proof, like 110 or anything like that? Do you have like a barrel strength or?
It's interesting. Yeah, we do our barrel strength. So we do a single barrel program for like corporations or stores, and we heat those up to 116. So
100 what?
116.
At 116.
Okay.
So the 116 brew barrels like that.
No, teen, 116.
116, yeah. The Echo. We did do a fun one. I say fun in quotation marks. Just when the pandemic first hit, we had a barrel, I believe, from 2016, and we called it the Shutdown Bourbon, and we put that at 120 proof because the CDC at the time said hand sanitizer has to be 60% alcohol or higher. And so we did a shutdown bourbon at 120.
How was that?
It was very, very tasty, and
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with JP's mash bill when it comes down to that. But again, to me, it tasted about 110 or 108, you definitely wanted to take an Uber home after having a couple of those for sure.
Fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. Did you guys do the while we're on that? Did you guys do any of the hand sanitizer like a lot of smaller distilleries?
We were, from what my understanding is, from what my boss has said, I guess that we were the #1 producer of hand sanitizer in the state of Michigan with 30,000 gallons.
Jeez, that's great. You guys did that.
So we passed up state police, first responders, nursing homes. And what was cool is we kind of pivoted, not panicked. So they said, Garrett, instead of going into bars and restaurants and kind of doing your thing, everyone's coming to the factory and everyone's going to learn how to bottle hand sanitizer, slap labels on, and boom, we're putting them on pallets. You got trucks coming in from UPS, the post office, state police. So that's what we did. It was kind of, it's obviously not a fun circumstance, but it was very, very interesting to learn during that time period a different aspect. If you were a bartender, a bar back, sales representative like myself, ruining their clothes and shoes.
No, we had a couple local ones do that as well, and I think it was a great effort. It was almost, I don't want to say ironic, but I mean, with the production that you kind of dug into of some of your other major stuff with your staff. There was also obviously this big alcohol and obviously bourbon boom was kicking, and it's like you guys, operations like yourself did that, and it's like holy shit, like, but we need to make more spirits. People are buying this, you know what I mean? Like they want the hand sanitizer, but they've got it now, so they want their booze.
Let's go back to making booze.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a bottleneck there. But
I think we were dumping barrels into bottles, boom, just like scrambling, like because it was a period of uncertainty. But if you just kind of focus on where do we go, everyone's always going to want to drink bourbon.
Yeah,
so that kind of thing.
I think it's fantastic. So, not to get you off your brand, but you had said that you do drink scotch at times. You're a big bourbon guy, whiskey guy. Do you have a go-to other than Detroit City Distillery that is kind of your go-to everyday nightcap, end of the day type of whiskey?
Yeah, my go-to, if I'm gonna go like affordability, let's be realistic. I do like the Four Roses single batch. That clocks in at like up here in Michigan, like $32.99.
Small batch or single barrel?
Small batch.
I'm the same way. That's definitely,
That's exactly that is Steve's go-to.
You are in good company here. Shannon's in the garage waving his hand. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely the small batch Four Roses. I do, just because I'm nostalgic. I don't really mind. I enjoy. I will always buy that commemorative bottle of Woodford Reserve for the Derby. I don't think there's anything wrong with Woodford Reserve. I know it's the the staple kind of go-to bourbon that's like highly distributed. If I want to get a little bit of funky, there is a very affordable bottle in Chicago. It was the Jepson's Bottled and Bond. If I want to treat myself, I will go down to Chicago and get that, which is ironic because it's only $29, but it's one of the most fantastic bottled and bond single barrels I've ever tasted. It even has Jepson's.
Is that available like at Benny's and stuff there? Or?
Yep, it should be available at Benny's.
All right, I'm headed. So all of my family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, and everything, I'm headed to Chicago in June. So I'm looking for things to pick up. So that'll definitely be on the list. I appreciate that. And this, obviously, and this.
Yeah, the Butcher's Cut's definitely in Benny's for sure.
Okay, good. Is the rye and the 4-grain at Benny's?
I don't believe the 4 grain's in there yet, just because this is so new.
Okay.
Literally as we speak, honestly, our owner, co-founder, is driving to Chicago right now. So
nice.
I think he's meeting with them, but definitely for sure the Butcher's Cut bourbon and that homegrown rye.
Okay. Well, if we don't get it beforehand, I'll make sure to put that on the list for when I go to Chicago here.
I'll give you money.
A good collector's item if you're going to Chicago too. I don't know if you're a gin fan. Remember I told you we have 7 different styles of gin.
Yeah.
A couple bartenders came up here after hearing about Detroit City Distillery from like Scofflaw, Violet Hour, various restaurants. They made their own. It's called the Blue Line gin. And so you can only get it in Chicago.
Okay.
So if my mom came up to me now and said, "Can I get a bottle of Blue Line gin?" I'd say no, I can't get it. You got to go to Chicago. That's a true story.
You gotta go to Chicago.
Yeah.
All right, so let me. What do you think of this? You already described the butcher's cut here. Before we move to the cigar briefly, we have to still hit the cigar, but normally when we have someone on from a distillery, we try to stay a little bit heavy on the booze. But we obviously welcome to the tour, everyone, if they can hear us. But what are your thoughts on this? When you describe this, you heard what Nate had to say. He's very, in my opinion, very well versed at this point, and very detailed. Would you agree with what he had to say, or do you have other notes?
So the notes that I always do that trick where you just kind of put a little on your hand. Get that almost like the hand sanitizer rub. I like to blow up my palate. So there's that 100 proof. That's where that proof comes, and I like to wave it out.
You're like the LeBron James of the whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like pregame.
I like to clap it out like that. And I like that barrel notes. So
I have never seen that before. Have you?
From the Neat documentary.
Okay.
Yes, that's where I got it from.
Oh, that's
and
right.
It shocked me. Yeah. So that's where I learned it from Buffalo Trace.
Yep, the older gentleman at Buffalo Trace
Freddie.
does that on the tours. Yeah.
Freddie, yeah.
Yeah. So if you do that, you'll notice Butcher's Cut is one of my favorite barrel smells. The barrel smell comes off that.
All right, let's. All right, we gotta do this. All right, so what do we do?
Okay. So go ahead, pour about a quarter size amount on your hand.
You better wash your hands first of all. All right, so what do? You pour a little bit.
Yep, and then go ahead. What, just like hand sanitizer.
Yeah,
on
to
the
get in
count
this.
of 3, get a 1, 2, 3 big whiff right up to your nose.
So you pour it in there and you wipe it around.
Yep.
Okay.
And then on count of 3, big whiff. So that's the 100 proof that you're getting. So that's opening up.
It's now in my beard.
I know it's on my beard too.
Are we doing jazz hands? What are we doing here? What is this?
Jazz hands in.
Jazz hands, okay.
Ethanol is getting out there right there. Then what you do, it's called applauding your whiskey, just like the guy from Neat was doing, Buffalo Trace.
I'm going to do that away from the microphone. Do it away from the mic. And then.
Now on count of 3, get that nice oak.
You do.
Now, it's not because I work for Detroit City Distillery, but when you do that with a lot of other bourbons, in my opinion, Barrel Joe's technique, you don't get that high quality of that kind of like oak barrel.
Huh. No.
I mean, there's definitely lots of oak barrels, but that's a really, really high quality. Then I kind of wave it out one more time. Give it. Then there's that sweet mash bill.
That's the mash bill?
Yep. So it's going to smell like there's your corn, there's your rye, there's your barley right there.
Wow.
So I always tell individuals, if your hands smell like a barn, then you're ready to sip.
Do you start your day like this normally?
I wish.
You put on aftershave? Yeah, I am. All right.
Yep.
Don't ask questions.
Right.
What beard oil do you use? Well, it's called Butcher's Cut.
That's
real
called
nice.
Butcher's Cut.
That sounds like a beard oil.
It does.
Eat 3 cloves of garlic to hide it. You're good.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
on nose, I do get that. First thing I get is a slight hit of butterscotch and just a little bit of the caramel with a slight sweetness of that honey.
Are you drinking out of a rocks or a Glencairn?
Glencairn.
Yeah.
And then on palate. first initial, there is a little heat to there, but then I get cloves, a little bit of that orange, and I have to breathe when I start to finish. When I start to breathe, I start to get tobacco and leather.
Tobacco and what, leather?
Yep, tobacco and leather is what I get on the finish. And then once you breathe, the clove in my palate comes back with a little bit of almost that lemony zest to it.
Yeah, there is a bit of a zest there.
Yep.
Yeah. Not real citrusy, but you say lemony, but I get that.
Yeah.
But like
So
that
not a
zest,
citrus,
it's like that zest is kind of like a mix of that citrus and bitter
Yeah.
there. So it's not really sweet, but it kind of makes your cheeks pucker a little bit.
Which
Yep.
cheeks?
The ones above your shoulders.
All right.
So it's almost like if you, the zest I'm talking about, almost if you drop like a lemon or an orange rind in like a clove tea, that's what I get at the end of it.
Yeah. She had a message that someone was watching this. Kristen was watching this. She's like, yeah, you guys are over there huffing right now.
Can you give me a brown bag?
There you go.
All right. All right. If we could switch gears momentarily here to the cigar here from Tinder Box at Easton, one of our sponsors. The featured cigar is going to be, make sure your cigar is lit before you start washing your hands. Right. Smart. Thank you, Charlie. But yeah, so it's the Joya de Nicaragua. It's the Antaño. It's a dark Corojo. This is going to be a dark shade, almost oscuro Corojo Nicaraguan wrapper leaf. And really, the only thing I really know about it is that it's Nicaraguan filler and binder. So it's Nicaraguan Puro, if you will, but it's going to have that really dark Corojo leaf. Normally, when you see like a Corojo wrapper leaf, you're going to have more of like a medium brown Colorado type of a shade to it. It's dark. So they say, it's oscuro during the fermenting process. I mean, this is a really rich cigar. Joya de Nicaragua definitely, I would say, is more well known for fuller bodied blends.
Mm-hmm.
They've been around for a very long time. 1970. Is that right?
Yeah.
1970.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
So, and this is distributed by Drew Estate, right? So they team up a little bit there. But I've always really liked this cigar. I do like the new packaging in recent years as far as the bands and everything else. I do kind of miss that real simple. Remember that? It was a very simple.
Where it's just like the red.
Yeah, and then I had a foot band that said dark yeah. I kind of miss that a little bit. But I do like it. It's a very pretty cigar, if you will. I mean, the wrapper leaf is dark. It's oily. It just shows a little bit of that sheen. I can see it even on yours, Nate, from sitting next to you here. And then it kept with the theme of the black and gold for the bands and the marketing behind it. What do you think of this cigar? Is this something you normally go to?
This is not something I normally go to. And in fact, Joya de Nicaragua is not something I typically go to. I've smoked them a lot in the past. Most of the ones I smoke are the regular Antaño series.
Yeah.
For me, the regular Antaño from Joya de Nicaragua, it's got a lot of Ligero. It's very full body, but there's not a lot of flavor to it. It's just a strong cigar.
The regular?
Yes.
The Antaño 1970.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very strong cigar, but there's not a whole lot going on the palate.
Yeah.
For me, it comes across a little light on the flavor. This one is actually probably my favorite of the Joya line because it's more balanced. I don't think this is as strong as the 1970, but it definitely has a lot more flavor. It's a richer cigar. So that because sometimes you blend a cigar and you want a full body cigar, it can overpower whatever flavors are there sometimes.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of a quality recipe for a cigar, like it's got to be a little bit of balance in there, and that's what they did with this one because of that wrapper. What's the wrapper on the regular 1970?
That I don't know. I would assume I want to say, I'll look it up here while you finish, but I want to say it's probably Corojo, which is why they call this dark Corojo.
So I like that. If that is the case, where the regular has a regular Corojo wrapper and then this one's dark, that's being that this one's aged a little bit longer, fermented a little bit longer. So that process brings out more of those oils and sugars from the leaf, and that's what gives that leaf a darker color, but it also makes it a little richer, heartier flavor. And that's what I like about this blend. It's more balanced. It provides a lot of flavor that I typically don't get in that original blend. I know they came out with a 50. They came out with a Connecticut, the Numero Uno. The Numero Uno and the Connecticut are milder, but they're still Nicaraguan blends, so they're still kind of mild medium. But I think this is one of those brands that their niche is typically going to be stronger powerhouse type cigars, which is where the 1970 comes in. I think this one, though, is just a better representation of what they can do, because it's strong, it's full body, but it's much more balanced, so it doesn't necessarily come across like a strong full-bodied cigar.
Nicaraguan Habano, from what I can find out here on the 1970 there.
Okay.
I agree with what you're saying. This cigar I really like. This is so full of flavor. This is something that we've lost Garrett.
You may have had to go to the bathroom.
It's fair. Garrett, just come on back in. I want to take off the screen for a moment. So yeah, this one, I've always liked this cigar. It's very rich. It is balanced. It's one of those that has so much flavor, and you may be right. It's not maybe as full as the 1970 Antonio, but I think that this is one that it has more, like you're saying, more flavor, has more depth. It's just this really rich, a little bit of that cocoa coffee, type of a flavor profile, and I get just a little bit of a pepper in the retrohale.
Yeah, I do too.
But I really enjoy the way that this cigar is. It's sadly, I feel like, overlooked a lot of the times. Joya de Nicaragua has a great portfolio, but this is definitely in my opinion, this is the one that I always go to.
Mm-hmm.
It is full bodied. We had this sampler where it was 25 cigars. And I forget where this one lined up, but there was one that was like a 6 out of 5. They said as far as strength. I don't think it was this one. I think it was another one. But they've done a great job with this. Like I said, I like the rebranding a little bit, but I do miss the other branding of this. I don't know if do you remember it?
Vaguely. It's like I said, it's been a long time since I've smoked these and paid attention to them on a regular basis. And
it was that
the oh yes,
yeah, it was
yes,
sexy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I like the old stuff a little bit better, but Joya de Nicaragua, when they went into the black, the silver, the red, and all that stuff, they're trying to come out with these everyday smokes, a couple bucks cheaper and all that stuff. I'm not saying they lost their way, but I do appreciate some of the originals that they've had, and I love Corojo wrappers. This is a unique one. I think this is a home run. This has always been one of my favorites, especially from the Drew Estate portfolio, Joya de Nicaragua portfolio. But yeah, it was kind of a test tonight. I said it earlier that this was kind of a test where, not knowing what the Butcher's Cut Bourbon tastes like, I picked a bold smoke.
You did.
Yeah, which is going to be interesting when it comes to the ratings.
I was worried about it too when I saw that cigar. When I saw Joya de Nicaragua and I saw a 2-year Michigan bourbon, I was like, all right, what are we doing? What do we got? We did not think this through. But then again, we don't necessarily plan on trying to make great pairings. We're just going to drink something, smoke something, and hope it goes well.
Yeah, I mean, this is all sitting pretty well here. What do you got working over there, Garrett?
Yeah, I stepped away. I went down to the belly of the beast and got the charred one of the staves. So that shows like this.
Can you come a little bit closer? I got you on the solo layout here. Yeah. So do you have like a char level? I mean, that's a lot of people look for that whole thing when they're doing tours. Is there a char level on that barrel?
Yeah, they do 4-time charred in. They say that's what Barrel Joe does.
Okay.
And then he doesn't reveal his secret because we do get them from him. He does not directly work from us, so we buy the barrels from him. And so these are the barrels that we go ahead and go ahead and get them.
Say, can you show where the line is of where the whiskey penetrated the wood staves on the side?
Right.
Oh yeah, you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see
it right there.
That's quite a bit for only 2 years.
2 years. Is it? You say 2 years, 4 months, right? I mean,
2 years, 4 months now. So that's when the barrel is doing that in that Michigan Midwest climate of those fun seasons we all deal with.
I would be super interested to see what the 4 year, how far that goes.
We're excited. Yeah, we're excited too. We're trying to once we have like the 2015.
Yeah.
Then we'll go ahead and obviously they're going to break that barrel down. It might be like some kind of like trophy, but they're eventually going to go ahead once they pop the bung, put it into the tote, bottle it. We're going to go ahead, and we always like to see the char that comes out through the filter too.
Yeah. We got one of our loyal listeners, Charlie, saying impromptu show and tell, Detroit City style.
There we go. I was like, you guys are making me jealous smoking cigars. I'm going to go get a stave.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever want to drive down to Columbus and be on the show.
I would love it, yeah. I mean, I'm jealous of your garage. I'm watching games, doing that.
Yeah, man. You're welcome anytime, literally anytime. So if you do get down into the Ohio area and you want to come by and you're in town during a Wednesday, just let me know ahead of time and we will get you on the show. And you can sit in my garage in a cul-de-sac in a subdivision in Columbus. Super impressive.
I'd love it. Yeah.
All right, let's do the let's round out part one here. So basically, as I mentioned earlier in the show, this is where we do the rating. So 10 being the best, we do 3 ratings. It's going to be the whiskey out of 10, the cigar out of 10, and then the pairing out of 10. And so I got to ask you, Garrett, you smoke cigars occasionally, yeah?
Yes, I do.
Are we taking a tour here? What's going on?
We're actually, I was going to, it said my battery's low, so I got to go from that 25,000 square foot factory to an outlet.
That's fair.
Well, this is actually kind of cool. That's our first barrel, if you can see it right up there.
Okay.
To the far right there. So that's
top right there. Yeah.
Yep, top right. And
Very
then
cool.
Here's more of our bespoke barrels right there.
Nice.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely Shannon. If you're up there soon, I mean, it looks like a great facility to
Yeah,
tour.
Shannon. There's much to it. I'll give Shannon the VIP tour too. Places you're not supposed to go, like the roof. Unfortunately, Detroit got hit with rain, and it's still going today. So.
Yeah, when I was talking to Garrett, he's like, well, if we'll see, I might do it on the roof and smoke a cigar. And then he's like, yeah, no, it's not happening. It's raining. But you do smoke cigars regularly, occasionally?
Occasionally. Yep.
Okay. Now, have you smoked a cigar while drinking this bottle?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And it's interesting you say that. I thought it was very cool. And I'm paraphrasing. This is not the exact quote, but one of the judges that blindly awarded us the award said his paraphrase quote, "Amazing whiskey, like meeting a gentleman way beyond his age who's young, someone I'd like to smoke cigars with, leather tasting, boom, that kind of thing." So they described it as a gentleman way beyond its age.
No, I think that's actually pretty accurate. I like that. So out of 10 for you, how about the whiskey on its own? And I know there's maybe some pressure with you being obviously the brand ambassador, 10 being the best. And then also when the last time I don't know if you recall the cigar you were smoking, but the last time you actually paired it with a cigar. And if you, like I said, if you remember what cigar it was, let us know that. But give us 2 ratings if you don't mind.
Cigar was probably with the cigar, and I remember the cigar specifically was just your classic Cohiba.
Okay, red dot probably.
Because I'm not like a huge like cigar connoisseur. I can't lie about that. With the cigar and the Butcher's Cut Bourbon with its age, that kind of thing, I would probably go 8.5.
Okay.
Whiskey on its own with, just straight neat, in the Glencairn, with its age, with its flavor profile, and again, not being biased, because it's what my palate kind of does. I would give it, for its age, for its flavor profile, and I like spice.
Yeah.
I would give it a 9.
Okay.
As far as a neat whiskey, as far as it being only 2 years, 4 months. And if you're dropping a little bit of the like a water dropper, like they call it, watering the garden, to bring up the floral notes to it, because I like spice and a little bit of smokiness, I'd give that an 8 for sure.
Okay, so you like it? You like this bottle neat?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. Shannon, do you want to chime in here?
We live?
Yeah, here.
All right, cool.
Turn 'em
Yeah,
up.
I'm really enjoying it. Kind of like what the fella said earlier about the first sip. The very first one was a little sharp, but it's really mellowed out. I love the sweetness to it. To me, it has a nice sweet finish, not over the top, but it's just enough to make me want to have another sip. And like you said, it's like a young man with an old soul. That's what it feels like. And,
Yeah.
I really like that. So I'm gonna give this bad boy a good 8. It's I really like it. It's definitely going on to the old bourbon shelf when I grab it. So
Yeah.
but when I get up there, I'll grab the boys some bottles. I'll bring some good stuff back.
Nice.
I might give it to you. I might give you a sip, let you stare at it.
All right. We gotta go camping with you and the missus. Yeah, I got it.
But yeah, man, I really like it, Garrett. Thank you.
What about? No, you're
Cool.
smoking the cigar, yeah?
Oh.
I mean, you might as well. You're here.
The cigar, you know me. I love full body cigars, and this thing is hitting every cylinder, man. So I'm gonna go with 9 on the cigar.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about the pairing?
The pairing, it's a pretty heavy smoke for the drink, but it doesn't overpower it too bad.
Yeah.
So I'll go with 8.
Okay.
I could go with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nate, how about you?
So I am going to give the whiskey an 8. And that was actually from the very first sip. If I only had one sip of this whiskey, I probably would have been around a 7. But it kept getting better as I drank it. And what I like is it's not trying to hide what it is. I mean, this is a 2-year whiskey. It's going to obviously taste different than stuff that's been aged longer, but it's amazing how much flavor and how smooth this is for being just a 2-year product. That not only surprised me, but it also impressed me.
Nice.
To have that quality of flavor and smoothness, especially being at 100 proof, for something as young as this is. And you talked about earlier that little game I do on Saturday nights at the shop, where you and Josh try and guess the proof. He didn't say this, but like the last 3 weeks of me doing that, Steve's been within like 1 to 3 proof points off.
Yeah.
So Steve has gotten really good at being able to nail down a guess on those proof points. So when you were coming in also saying that this tasted more like a 90 or high 80s, I mean, that says something about how smooth and good this product is. As far as the pairing, I'm a little bit opposite of Shannon. I think these actually go really well, a little bit better together, because I'm surprised this young of a whiskey is standing up to this stout of a cigar. So I'm actually going to give the pairing a 9.
What was the cigar?
8.
8. Bottle an 8.
Yes. Oh, I didn't even go into the cigar. Yeah. Cigar's an 8. I forgot to give the individual rating on the cigar.
I'm just trying to keep
appreciate it. No,
going on.
the cigar is an 8.
I mean, this bottle did go quick between the three of us.
But no, like this, like about halfway through, like this cigar started to get really soft. I had kind of a tunnel going on in it, so it burned up a little quick. But I love the flavor on the cigar. Like I said, it's probably my favorite blend coming out of Hoya. Yeah,
I got you.
So 8 on the whiskey, 8 on the cigar, but then a 9 on the pairing.
Nice. Okay. For me, it's I wish you guys honestly were a local distiller where we're at. I do like trying to support some of the local distilleries, because especially ones that are putting out good products, right? And Columbus has their handful for sure. We've had some of them on the show before. In fact, 3 of the major ones we've had represented on the show before, and I like what they're all doing. And that's where I look at this. When they have a bottle for $40-$50, it's like, well, you know, like you mentioned the Four Roses small batch, and another one that I've been kind of gravitating towards where I don't mind just killing, you know, the bottle anytime is Old Forester 100 proof. You know, that's one for, in Ohio, it's $22 and not the most complex, not the most, you know, but it's like, it's a decent, you know, daily drinker, if you will. This is I'm with you guys a little bit on it. It's surprising how easy to drink this is, you know, again, given when you look at this, you're like, if I walked in a store, never met you, Garrett, never heard anything about this, and I'm like, all right, now Detroit's putting out bourbon. Okay, let's see what's going on. $50, like, Jesus, all right, you know,
and
like,
for a 2-year.
Yeah, and then you look at the back and it's like 2-year. Like, I like the story. It's like all these things. If I'm walking up on the shelf, not knowing about this, not seeing the glimpses that we've seen of the operation. And on that note, I'll say, I bet you most people that come into your operation, they are huge fans of what you guys do, and that sells a lot of repeat buyers because of what I've seen so far tonight. The bottle gets better and better. I'd give it an 8.5. I'd give it an 8.5 just because it is such an easy drinker. I like the attention to detail. This is batch 40, bottle number 285. It's clearly handwritten, unless you have some crazy font that you guys are printing on there. But I mean, it looks very handwritten.
Yeah, it's definitely hand. We got we got an art store down the street. We get those like small little like pinpoint Sharpies. We run out of those like weekly.
No, I mean, I love the attention to detail. We didn't really talk about the branding a whole lot. We talked about the picture on it. It's a great looking bottle. Even on the cork, you've got the logo. I don't know if you noticed that. And then, you know, around that it says "Toast to Revival, Taste the History." I mean, you've got all the. I like those points. You know what I mean? As far as the attention to detail, if you're going to put out a local product, in a sense, it's got a story, it's got good flavor, and everywhere in between. So yeah, 8.5 on that. The $50 price point is, like I said, almost expected these days. You know, especially for a smaller operation. The cigar, I'm going to give it also an 8.5. I love this cigar. So Tinder Box at Easton didn't have it for a while, and then brought it back in recently. So I was kind of geeked about it. That's one of the reasons I grabbed it tonight. Is we haven't done it in the last 4 years. Doing the show, but I think this is a great cigar. I really enjoy it. The pairing on the flip side of it, I think these two actually go really well together. But if we were doing this all over again, I would pick a different cigar, or if we were smoking the cigar, I would pick a different whiskey just to try to bump it up. I'd give this, like I said, 8. You know, I'd go a little bit lower on that. Because it does stand up to each other, which is actually, again, it was kind of a test to the bottle. This thing stands up to a very stout flavored cigar. I mean, this is going to be something that not everything would, but I think it actually complements it to a point because of the smoothness. There's a little bit of sweetness in the bourbon. There's some nice flavor notes that they're not lost against this cigar. I give it an 8 because it is a good pairing, but definitely you could change the cigar or change the whiskey depending to make it better.
What kind of cigar would you?
Something medium bodied. Maybe he's holding up the H. Upmann Nicaragua. Maybe that. Not to be a homer, but, you know, the BS Gold, something with, like, you know, I like the Nicaraguan tobacco, but something medium bodied. Yeah, Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, something like that. Yeah, from someone. Yeah, I could see it going a little bit better with that. Where this possibly could go better with not having it, but maybe their rye, the homegrown rye. You know, you have a little bit of spice on the other side of the equation. So
rye wouldn't be a bad move with that.
What's that?
I said the rye wouldn't be a bad move with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be something that would complement a little bit more of a, you know, a fuller flavored cigar that's, you know, again, now you're dealing with kind of two heavier hitters as far as just like kind of blasting the palate a little bit, in a good way. So, but yeah, I just 100%. I appreciate it, Garrett. This is fantastic. We talked about part 2. I'm not going to hold you to it. We can talk about that in the intermission. But for now, I do want to thank. Do you have anything else further for the part 1 here, Garrett?
No, I just want to say thank you, everyone. Again, anyone that wants to come to Detroit, definitely, guys. Steve and Nate, thank you so much. Get my information, especially you, Shannon, when you're coming up. We'll take care of you if you're staying in Detroit. I live 8 minutes from here. Aside from the whiskey tour, let's go on a Detroit tour. I'll take you to all the spots. So
nice.
And as long as I can hang out with you guys in the garage, come down on a Wednesday.
Dude, brother, you're always invited. Open invite for sure. Let me know, and we can make sure. Even if we have a guest, we can feature your whiskey, and you can sit at the table for sure.
Cool.
But I do want to thank our sponsors before we sign off part 1. Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. The Joya de Nicaragua, Antonio, Dark Corojo. Appreciate the cigar, and make sure you guys check them out as well. Just had their big annual event, the Smoking 10 event, but there will be more events and already planning for the next year. So can't start planning that one soon enough. Altadis USA, we got the H Up in Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez coming up for part 2, and then also the BS Cigar Company for the gold and silver. You guys at patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. Thank you so much for the continued support. If you guys aren't on that already, please check that out and pick a tier and help us out. Venmo at Bourbon and BS if you want to buy us a bottle. You can always do what Jerry Dezensky did with this and just literally come and hand me a bottle and say, hey, this is for the podcast. I want to hear. So I texted him today and I said, hey, man, we're finally reviewing it, because I was trying to hook up with Garrett and the guys at Detroit City here. So thank you guys very much. And also, if you want the swag that we're wearing, like the hoodies, buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. Garrett, thank you very much. Sure. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. For those listening live, we're going to do a quick intermission and have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
And we're clear. We're still live, Garrett, but I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know if you want to stick around in the warehouse, or if you need to go home, or what you need to do.
Yeah, I'll stick around for. You know what? I live 8 minutes away. I might jump back on when I get back to my apartment. So, all
right. You want to sign off now, or you want to stick around?
You know what? Let's stick around for sure.
All right. So the topic tonight, for those that are going to be staying tuned, where is it? I'll put it up on the screen here. Is there really too much of a good thing is the topic tonight?
You have all his information. I'll just email him.
I have his email.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll link it up.
Steve will give Shannon your email, and Shannon will email you, Garrett.
I've got his phone number as well, so you can text him.
Gotcha. Cool.
It'll probably.
It actually is on. I forgot to turn it on.
His number now. You guys can FaceTime while we're doing the show or whatever.
No, I'll probably be up there probably the weekend of July 23rd, that Saturday. But we'll I'll verify everything with you. So
yeah,
we'll
definitely hook you up there. Sean Anderson's already commenting on the part 2 here. I got to be honest, while we're in the intermission here real quick, before we go live for part 2, these topics are getting tougher and tougher. So yeah, we'll see where this conversation goes. I love that Sean's already commenting. If you guys are listening live, make sure, if you don't mind, sharing it, inviting other people to the feed here and getting more people out there. I see Sean, I saw Ray, I saw Brian Joyce even was tuning in tonight. I'm glad to see that he was able to link in there. Let's see.
Now it's his bedtime.
Yeah, he probably won't stick around. Who's Jacob, Garrett?
Jacob.
I'm gonna butcher this last name.
Kaltika.
Oh, Jacob's on?
He was earlier. He said, "Oh boy, we got Garrett on here."
Yep. Yeah, Jacob's a mega fan of Detroit City Distillery.
Nice.
Yeah, I think he's he's got a YouTube show.
What's it called? Let's get a shout out if he's still on here.
Let me make sure. Hold on a sec. Jacob, text me if you're on the show.
After I first lit up the cigar, I noticed like the way it kept smoking.
Yeah.
It was kind of reminded me of the Nika.
Yeah. I do like this.
I just want to make sure it's the right.
Yeah.
Let's see. You guys are still intermission, right?
We're still intermission, but again, we just stay live here.
Gotcha.
I mean, so what I do is I go after the fact, download the audio, and then I split it up into 2 parts for all the podcast apps.
Such as you, the viewer. Visit memestadium.com/.
We're live and we're listening to his.
By our co-host, special
If it's the
guest,
Jacob,
Garrett Passiak from Detroit City Distillery, Saint Nick himself, Santa Claus, and your host. We
Santa
are
Claus.
now live in
Yep.
Technicolor.
Jake Kusachis. Yep.
All right. What's it called?
Talk show to go.
Talk show to go. All right.
Yep, he did a stint with me, and he was live in person. And I walked him through the factory, and then I walked him across the street where we did where we had the original operation where we started.
Nice.
And he had a good time.
That means he drank a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he buzzed. He got me talking about skateboarding at the end of the stint, so that was funny.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like our part 2. You never know where it goes.
Yep.
All right. Let's roll into this. You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 215, part 2, Beyond the BS. This is kind of where we switch gears a little bit in the show. So every week we do the part 1, which is a cigar and a whiskey, right? So tonight we did the Detroit City Distillery Butcher's Cut Bourbon. We reviewed that in part 1. We were also smoking the Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Dark Corojo. Thanks to Tinder Box at Easton, one of our sponsors here in Columbus, Ohio. Check them out for sure for that cigar and other Drew Estate products. And I'm talking 500-600 different options at that point. So check them out as well. Detroit City Distillery. We found out in part 1 and listened to our whole conversation with Garrett from Detroit City Distillery, who's still on with us here for part 2, for better or worse. And then see if he lasts the whole time. We don't know. We'll see what happens. But
Depends on if my better half calls me and I got to go.
That's fair. We can write you a note if you need to. Or just
There
have
you
her
go.
tune in and comment and give us all the dirt. That'd be fine too.
There you go.
But yeah, they are distributed mainly in Michigan, a little bit of Chicago area. So if you guys are looking for those bottles, make sure you get to the state of Michigan or also the Chicagoland area, and you should be able to find those as well. I want to thank also Altadis USA and BS Cigar Company. And then also check out buyjack.com/bourbonandbs for any of the gear, like the blue hoodie I have on, the barrelhead black camo. That pink one's gone, man.
I know.
You got the pink shirt, but there are the podcast shirts as well that are available that say, what does it say? Let's see the pink. You wanted to flash everyone. There you go. Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. So that's the podcast shirt.
Was that thin, Shannon?
There's it's a little cold in the garage, is it? But anyways, let's get back to it. Patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast and Venmo at Bourbon and BS. Tonight's topic is going to be, is there really too much of a good thing? And Garrett, the way it is, kind of like what you're talking about in the intermission when you were giving a tour, it's like by the end of it, if you guys are like getting to know each other, if you're having drinks, same thing in a cigar shop, everyone's hanging out, you get past the whole like, hey, what's your name? What are you smoking? And then, about an hour or two later, you start figuring out the world's problems, or you hear about someone's problems, or whatever it might be. But
Right.
This is kind of the model of the podcast. So part 2 is always a life topic. Is there really too much of a good thing? Honestly, I'm glad you stuck around, because there's a lot of different aspects of life that you can actually, I guess, address this topic. You know what I mean? If can you go overboard, right? Can you go overboard when you're doing something? Can you make it an extreme, sacrifice other things, take things for granted that, when you're focused on, the happiness or the good things in life to the negatives? But I got to ask you, I mean, like, and you too, Nate, Shannon's in the garage here, and all you listeners out there, I think, the bourbon industry is absolutely a prime example of this type of a question. In any industry, when things are booming, you see people latching on and getting in the game, and they get in either early, they get in like right in the middle of it, or they get in too late. And, let's stick with that for the first part, and then we can talk about other aspects of life that you guys want to come up with, or I can introduce here. But it's like the bourbon world. We're in a bourbon boom. We're still in a cigar boom in a sense. Cigars are going to be regulated a little bit more closely by the FDA again, possibly. So there's threats there. But I mean, so Garrett, I mean, if you want, you guys have been in business for how many years?
We're going on 8 years. 8 years in September. So,
and one of the things I like about what you said is that you seem to be focusing on your strengths. Michigan, a little bit of the Chicago area. But when I asked the question in part 1 about, are you guys looking for wide distribution? And it was like, right now, this is where we're at. We don't want to, change things. In a sense, I took it as like, we have the one still. This is what we're able to do. We're going to do it the correct way. And, we're going to do this the best way we can without sacrificing what we're doing.
You don't want to grow too fat, too big, too fast.
Right.
You don't want to all of a sudden go from 1 still to 10 overnight.
Yeah. And you got the staffing, aspects of it and all that stuff. But I mean, so, just as well as we do, doing this show and being, whiskey enthusiast, bourbon enthusiast, is there a breaking point? I mean, everyone wants to start their own distillery, right?
Right.
So, I mean,
I don't think it's.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, so let's go. Is there really too much of a good thing? Depends on how you look at it. In my opinion, you look at the bourbon world, you've got like that tier, bourbon. All right. When you delve under, that crust, there is so much like aspects of bourbon. Number one, you're going to have the history of bourbon. You're going to have, the recipes, who's got the best still, different styles of those styles of still. And I think there's not too much of a good thing if you keep delving into like the knowledge of bourbon and keeping it fun, and that's just almost like a life lesson as well. Keep delving into knowledge. If you hit a cap, in our case, I wouldn't call us, we're at a production cap of we're not going to expand. But when you hit that kind of cap where we've just got one still, bourbon's a good thing.
Hang on, we lost you for a second there.
Kind of froze up.
Maybe
his battery died. He
might have died.
He didn't get a chance to plug it into a charger yet.
But we didn't lose him completely. So, Garrett, if you can still hear us, we lost you. So let's come back to him. Hopefully he comes back here. Maybe his better half actually is calling him right now.
And that's what it
and
interrupted
that
the feed.
took him off the feed.
To me, there are times where during this bourbon boom that we're in, it kind of makes me think back to the cigar boom of the 90s, where you just had anyone who had money was buying tobacco, having a cigar made, slapping a label on it and shipping it, and charging $10 for it.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s. And I think we've kind of seen that a little bit in the bourbon world, where all of a sudden a distillery, air quotes, pops up and they immediately just start sourcing whiskey, and they do that for like the first 4 or 5 years. They're just buying other distilleries' juice and then sitting on it or blending it and then barreling it and calling it their own stuff. Now, some of them are honest, and of course, on the label, it has to say where it's actually being distilled. But we've seen a lot of those where, it like that one I had that I picked up in Tennessee, that rye. It's like, this is the name of the distillery. We're located here in Tennessee, and then you turn and you read the side label, and it's from Indiana. It's like, oh, now I know where that's coming from, But
it's not a bad thing.
It's not necessarily a bad thing because that distillery is putting out great product. I'm just wondering at times, like, what happens if the bubble deflates a little bit, not necessarily pop like, oh, suddenly no one likes bourbon. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's more like what happens if all of a sudden the demand and popularity of bourbon goes down a little bit. How many of those smaller pop-up distilleries are still going to exist and make it through that, that have enough of a support and fan base that they can sustain longevity?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's always a gamble, right? Is jumping into it, right? And you try to do all that stuff. I think the transparency to a point is good. Like with the bourbon world is, you know, like you said, sourced, you know, whatever, you know, in Indiana. It's like, all right, so likely it's MGP. That's a plus now that it's, in my opinion, especially with if you are trying to build your own brand on top of that. A lot of distilleries do that. A lot of cigar companies are being, in my opinion, more transparent as well. You know what I mean? You've got like, so for example, now you're just flat out like the cigar you're cutting right now, which is from Altadis, which is the H. Upman, Nicaragua. They literally are putting the band on there that AJ Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
No hiding this at all. That the fact that, you know, you've got this cigar. Hey, we got a new H. Upman. There's actual technique to it as far as the marketing goes. That, hey, this is made by AJ Fernandez.
Yeah,
we worked with them. You know, our blenders or our group of maestros worked with them. But this is an H. Upman product, but it's made by someone else. There's no shame in that. In fact, now I think it's built as, you know, it's something that you can do really well with.
Well, and it's almost kind of like that MGP similarity where you have one company working with someone else who is actually using their tobacco to make a cigar. You have other distilleries that are working with someone else who actually is making the initial product. They're then just bottling or, you know, blending from what they can get from those other manufacturers.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I'm texting with Garrett here. He says something went wrong. He's trying again. We'll see if we get him back on here, which we hope we do. I mean, again, I love it when, especially with someone like that, you know, he's busy guy, and obviously, you know, not everyone from the distilleries or the cigar companies are able to stick around, but we love having him on here for this. But really, too much of a good thing. Let me bring it back here while we wait on this. Besides the comments between Sean and Bobby about eating a dick here, let me see if I can bring up some comments. I love this. Is there too much of a good thing? Let me pull up Charlie Creekmore here and see what your guys' take is on this. If I can find it here. Again, my eyes are not the greatest here. I don't need your glasses. I went too far. Some of the Rolling Stones.
Well, yeah, because he made a comment about the Rolling Stones being on their farewell tour for 20.
There you go. Is there really too much of a good thing? ? Yes, for example, a Rolling Stones farewell final tour that's been going on for 20 years now. Yeah, too much of a good thing. There's so much. You can do that with entertainment, right? You know, where it's Rolling Stones, the farewell tour. I think Jimmy Buffett did the last concert of his career. I don't know, 1,000 times.
Yeah.
You know, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But it's something that, again, there's a bit of a sell. Then there's the cash grab. Look at some of the sequels of movies. You know what I mean? Like where it's like Fast 10 is still in production.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Fasten your seatbelt. But I mean, it's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, I mean, if they're still if you're still making money doing it, is there too much of a good thing? Yeah, sometimes there is. I mean, it's the whole jump the shark thing from what is it, Happy Days, right? When the jump the shark episode where you finally, like, you're still doing it, and then finally it's like, dude, no one's watching anymore. Like, you're done. So you had your run, you did well. I love that about like shows like Seinfeld or Friends, you know, stuff like that more recently. Not recently anymore. That's, even showing my age, but Seinfeld basically like turned down shit tons of money to do a season 10. He's like, nah, we're done.
Yeah.
and now he just makes money off of the reruns.
Well, yeah, because he sold it into syndication to so many companies. He's made more off the syndication of the show than he ever did actually doing the show.
It's phenomenal. Oh, we got Garrett back here.
I think I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Internet hiccup.
No problem.
Happens.
We've moved on to TV shows.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you're doing a live show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But if you want to, do you remember what you were saying about, the bourbon industry?
Yeah, just bourbon industry. Never too much of a good thing. Every time you think you're like capped off at something, always just kind of go ahead and like learn more. How do you do it? How are you going to do it in the future? Don't get discouraged if you can't do it just now. Just keep having fun, especially with bourbon, as we all know. It's just bourbon's crazy. There's not a certain style of bourbon or any type of bourbon technique, distillery, be it high tier or just low tier. Like, always just keep learning, and that's the way to go. So
let me ask you this question though, with that and anything else, when you stick to your strengths, right? So right now, part one, you were telling us about, this is the portfolio. You have 3 staple whiskeys, right?
Yep.
You have 7 gins, 1 vodka, and now you're doing like the single barrel program. You're doing some of these other, efforts, if you will. But I think that's something that a lot of businesses and just people in general, it's like, what you're good at. There is this fine line where it's like, all right, so I'm just going to stick with what I'm good at. And it's one of those things that you might, over time, you might actually fall back a bit because there's nothing new. There's no
adaptation.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily expanding.
Like the single barrel thing, I think is a great thing. You're talking about, you're doing this 4-year
bottled in bond
project.
Correct.
And
yeah.
So it's these things, but then you see these other distilleries, and this is universal. You see these other that they just throw everything out there, like they're throwing like spaghetti on the wall and just hoping that something sticks to it. Is that something's right and ripe and ready to go, that it's going to stick to the wall and you're good. But it's like if you just throw everything out there, it's like, hey, we're doing well. People are starting to recognize Detroit City Distillery. So now we're just going to throw out everything, put the name on everything. And it's like, you can really sabotage your own brand as a person, as a business or whatever. If you just, hey, things are going really well. Let's just do it. Let's throw everything at it.
Almost overextend yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You stretch yourself.
Yeah, I think in the case of here, they take a very like meticulous look to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's a perfect example is like the 4 grain that just came out. That's kind of funny. This is a prop. That's the 4 grains that are in there. And you're always, in my opinion, not just in distillation in general, you take your strengths. How do you go ahead and rocket that to something to where it's not necessarily that you're gambling. It's going through with the confidence. Is it going to taste good? And boom, like this came out. There's only 3 batches so far. I think there's a 4th, but this is getting a huge response. And, you go ahead, you value your strengths. You don't gamble. You don't throw spaghetti on the wall, and you just go ahead and say, something, this is what we're going to do. And then I love a quote, one of my favorite comedians back in the day, W.C. Fields. If it's first you don't succeed, try again, then quit. There's no use being a damn fool about it. And I think that's what a lot of like companies, again, not just in the bourbon industry, but life in general, that's what a lot of individuals have to feel about it. There's a difference between thinking what you're good at and knowing what you're good at. You know what you're good at something when people tell you. You think you're good at something when you just tell yourself. That's what I always tell people.
Well, I think there's a level 2 where you hear the term or like the saying, like the honeymoon phase with relationships. But I think it also goes with like businesses and just what you're doing, like a hobby, or, you turned a page in your personal life and, everyone like starts, hey, this is great. That good thing that's going on right now. It's not that like necessarily that is there really too much of a good thing, but it gets to that point where it's like things will start to settle again, whether it be like a personal relationship, the business, like you start coming out, like you start hitting it with a couple single barrels or like these new projects and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we've kind of overextended here. We're losing our focus on the core products that we do, on the core values of our, of the relationship, of the, if you're getting into that, your diet and stuff like that, you can quickly just teeter the wrong way because you are building that, but you lose sight of it. You're just, you're going with that whole vibe and the success and the euphoria that you're going through, and then quickly that can change for the bad, because the fact that you're riding that wave and you're like, every wave will eventually kind of mellow out or crash on top of you. And I think that happens a lot with business ventures. I think that happens a lot with your personal relationships, is if you're just rolling through that, you start ignoring the fact that, like, hey, we need to like kind of take a step back and recenter a little bit to say, hey, what's actually like that kind of like self-analysis. You know what I mean? You have to really say, like, is this really going to be a good thing long term, or is this a high? Because I think those highs, they obviously they promote those, like that low feeling that that you have a high, but at the same time, it's like that high is going to end. It's going to come back down to, I hate to say it, but almost like this, like the mediocre everyday life that you have to keep building up to get to, not just that temporary high or the good thing that is just skyrocketing, because that will not last. It just won't. I'm listening to some comments here. Brand building or brand damaging. It's a thin line between love and don't care anymore. That's kind of, similar.
Yeah.
Very similar. Let's see what Ray has to say. Put it up on the screen here. So he's got two different business plans. For sure, there are those companies that will most definitely use current status to milk the market for as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And there are others who don't use that wave to influence a product that they truly believe in.
Well, I mean, to that, I mean, there are some that, like you said, they're going to try and cash in while they can, while the market is a certain way, or, while people are buying certain things, like there's going to be a lot more competition suddenly in those markets because demand for those types of products is going to go up. So some people might, take part of their production and change it to something else that's hot right now.
Yeah.
So that way they can try and cash in on that little bit. And then if that particular market all of a sudden cools off, well, then that part that they set aside for that, they just move it right back into their regular daily business that they were doing before.
Right.
They're just trying to cash in while they can. So they're kind of diversifying themselves, but not losing, who they are and what they do.
Yeah. Well, you saw that a little bit. We talked about it in part one that, you guys at Detroit City Distillery, you did the whole, hand sanitizer thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you do something like that because that is a need, right? You do adapt to a point, but you're doing it. There's always different facets of it. I mean, you're doing it because that's what we all thought, we should be doing at the time. A lot of people did. But at the same time, it's like you're still a distillery. Like, you're doing this because there is a goodwill there, but it's also, I'm not putting words in your guys' mouth, but it's great brand recognition. So there's two facets of it, right? It may be more, but it's like we're doing the right thing, but we're also like we're putting our logo on those hand sanitizers so they know where it's coming from. So in the long term, that people will still remember and hopefully buy from people they like.
Oh, I never heard of Detroit City Distillery before until I used their hand sanitizer. So
best hand sanitizer I used during the pandemic.
Yeah, now I'm gonna go out to my liquor store and try and find it.
I am doing this, smelling it, and it smells like oak barrels.
Yep. My hand smells like yeast.
I think that is part of it, though, is that, with all of that being said, is that those core things that you roll through, that you have to stay true to, so from a business aspect, do you guys have a mission statement or core values? I mean, I know this is maybe not as
core,
common.
You know what? The core values, it's not a complete 100% mission statement, but
I'm
if
not
you look
testing
on
you
at
or
Butcher's
anything
Cut,
like that,
where it says, cheers to history, toast to revival.
Yeah.
It's basically, you know, when it says taste the history, toast to revival, it is that resurgence of the city of Detroit. We went to like the knit and grit, that kind of thing. So it's taste the history is what basically our mission statement is. Taste the history of Detroit, and then toast to revival for the up and coming that Detroit has experienced in the past. You know, I'm not going to say the past decade, like even the past 2 decades. You know, it's been it's been working on. It's got a history. Taste that history. You know, Prohibition. We had the Purple Gang back during Prohibition, and so it's kind of like that play on words of, you know, Detroit had a history. They're reviving. Don't forget the history. Cheers to its revival is the basic, in my opinion, the unofficial mission statement of Detroit City Distillery. So,
like it. I like that. I liked what Charlie said on there. It was, you know, today's magnificent is tomorrow's mundane. That's like, it's always challenging. That's the high I was talking about. You know what I mean? You're going to have that high, and then, you know, tomorrow you do the same thing, and it's like, well, yeah, that was great. Well, aren't you excited about it anymore? Yeah. What's the next thing? I look at this too much of a good thing. It's when you really get into a hobby or you get into a new relationship, and again, going back to that honeymoon phase, and it's like you want to like be around that person all the time. You want to be doing this thing the whole time, and then eventually it's kind of like this is all you're doing, and then you forget that, like, well, what about the rest of the things I do? You know what I mean? Like you have like this new hobby. Say it is. So you live in Michigan, right? And you're like, I'm just going to hit all the local distilleries. But you had other hobbies before that. So you're going to hit all these distilleries and all that stuff. And it's like now all of a sudden that hobby is almost like smothering you, and people around you are like, all right, it's cool that you're into bourbons. It's cool that you're into cigars or whatever it might be, or cool that you're into working out. You're cool that you know. I'm really happy you found a hobby, but dude, I haven't seen you, dude, in like 6 months.
right.
Well,
I mean that happens, right? I mean, because like all of a sudden you're so immersed in that, and then something might shift your, you know, the boat starts rocking in your own life, and you start reaching out to be like, dude, I haven't heard from you in like 6 months. Like I'm still here for you, but like.
We've seen that some in the whiskey industry the last few years, where you had people that just started getting into whiskeys and bourbons, and then all of a sudden, like a month or two later, they're the people that are at the store 2 hours before the truck arrives, or they're waiting overnight for the allocations to go on sale. And like now they're devoting so much time, and they're spending so much money to just try and get certain bottles or build a collection. Same thing with cigars. You know, we had customers came in a few weeks ago, just getting into cigars, and like right off the rip, they're, you know, buying, you know, $250 humidors and $70 cutters, $70 lighters. They're buying 20 cigars, and then coming in a week later and buying 20 more. Or we got one customer that comes in and practically buys like 6-7 cigars a day. And some of the guys are like, dude, you need to slow down a little bit, or quit buying all the expensive cigars, because you're going to go broke real fast. The shop,
or sit there and breathe without a cigar in your mouth. You know what I mean?
The last shop I worked at, there was a guy who, when he first got into cigars, the first cigar he ever had, and why this shop sold him that cigar for his first cigar, I don't know. I'd like to have that conversation. The first cigar that this guy ever smoked was a Padron 90th anniversary Maduro.
It's a good cigar.
It's a damn good cigar, but depending on the state you live in, that's like a $25 to $30 cigar, and he was smoking 4 a day. So
I mean, that's like a car payment every few days.
It is.
That point.
Yeah. Now, granted, you know, he had some success, but even with the success he had in his professional career, it took about a month before he's like, you know what? I think I need to smoke some other stuff.
He couldn't make his car payment. I mean, it's full circle there.
But yeah, I mean, he just went, you know, too heavy, too fast. In terms of like how much time and energy and resources he was devoting to that.
Yeah.
I did the same thing years ago before I was married. I got into paintball, and all of a sudden, like within a month, I probably spent close to $1,000 on paintball gear and everything. And I was playing paintball like every weekend. And then all of a sudden my stepdad's like, how much money have you spent on paintball gear and playing paintball the last month? And I said, about this much. He's like, cool. And you're living at home. Time for you to start paying for stuff.
There you go. Well, Ray says, so what if you can afford it? You're absolutely right, Ray. I mean, if you can afford that kind of stuff, whether it be time-wise, financially, whatever. And Sean also says here, I love this. Ray, there's the gym reference. Yeah, sorry that I bring in, physical wellness to this topic, but that is something else that is huge all the time, because that is a huge thing, is that dysmorphia, type of a thing where people are so obsessed. They do the diet thing. It's probably one of the biggest shortcomings. I'm not even talking about people that do this, the health and fitness thing for a living or anything like that. But I mean, when people talk about, I'm going to it's like New Year's resolutions. I'm going to do this. And I think that, the gym thing or physical is a prime example. And you're like, all right, so what are you doing? And you're like, well, I'm going to the gym 7 days a week for, I'm going to eat, just, chicken breast and broccoli. I'm like, well, you're not going to last. Like, what are you talking about? It's great. Talk to me in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Either you're going to be killing it and you have your mindset, but most likely, very likely, you will be sticking with it and hating yourself, or you're going to stick with it and you will be so isolated because you can't hey, you want to go out to eat? Well, do they have chicken breast? You want to go grab a beer? No, I can't drink anymore, because I'm, trying to get a 6-pack. And you're like, cool, man.
I got my own 6-pack.
Yeah.
It's in the fridge.
I got a couple 6-packs for you. It is about that balance. You know what I mean? That is there really too much of a good thing? Absolutely.
But then also, like with the working out thing, like you have some people, or even the dieting, like you have some people that they go so overboard that they'll go overboard working out and they hurt themselves, or they go overboard with their diet and, yes, they lost some pounds, but now some of their organs aren't functioning the way they should because they're not getting proper nutrition. They're just starving themselves to try and hit a certain weight or have a certain look.
That's that body dysmorphia.
And it's a healthier thing to do if, like, you set a time frame to do it gradually instead of just trying to go from, hey, I'm 230 today, in a month I want to weigh 170. Like, I'll have 9-1 dialed and wait for the 1 when you need it.
Yeah. Well, and Rachel, am I speaking from experience? Absolutely. I am. I absolutely am.
Yeah.
I posted some, memories with my buddy Grant for a happy birthday. And there was a picture in there when I was just like fucking just lean as shit.
The bicep picture, the side pose with the.
I'd love to be able to be out that again.
With the Steve Crane thumb up.
That's
thumbs
right.
Up.
But the other side of it is when we look at that is there too much of a good thing? On that, and we can get off this. Food can taste amazing. Carbs are phenomenal, right? I mean, like, you got Easter coming up for people that celebrate with the family, right? Christmas, same thing. Anytime it's like, we have ham or turkey or whatever it is. We have a meat, a protein. What else are you eating?
Mashed potatoes.
We have one
rolls.
veggie. But that veggie is like a casserole. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
It's like it's literally like a protein. And then all the carbs
and cheese.
And it's like, well, it's a big meal. What time are you eating? Well, we're eating at 4, but the appetizers come out at 2.
And then we have 3 pies for 8 people.
But then you fast forward, like, is it really too much of a good thing? I want to just really highlight on this and then we move on. But it's like, shit tastes good, right? Drinking, same thing. These are all types, like cigar. You're not just even talking about finances, but it's like, if you drink a whole bottle, it tastes good. You like the way you feel. You get hammered. Same thing. You eat a certain way because it tastes good. I'm going to hit up, a couple of Big Macs. I'm going to eat fries all the time. And it's like, fast forward 6, 12 months. Now all of a sudden it's like, I feel like shit. Yeah. Too much of a quote.
Steve, Nate. The bosses are closing down the studio, so I gotta exit. But if you guys are still on, I'll be I'll jump on at like 8 or in like 8 minutes.
Brother. All right, brother.
All right.
We'll probably still be here.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Garrett.
Say hi to everybody.
Say hi to your mother for me. How we doing? I think we lost him again. Yeah, I know. Cheers to everyone at Detroit City Distillery. Thank you very much. But that is a big, isn't America built, quote, on too much of a good thing?
Well, that was the 80s for sure. And then you have the movie.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Then you have the movie The Other Guys. I myself have 18 Lamborghinis.
Yeah. I look at this and I think this is something, and Charlie, thanks for saying that. Cheers, Garrett. I look at this as something that if you do too much of it, if it is taking over your life, you might have some very good gains from it. You might have some very detrimental lows from some of the things that you do on a daily basis if you get so tied up into it and you lose that balance.
Yeah.
I truly think that. I think that balance is something we talk about on this podcast, especially in part 2. There has to be some sort of a balance. You need to take a day off. You need to be able to, like, all right, so surface level stuff. I drink whiskey every day. Well, how much? Do you take a day off? Do you have a glass? Do you have 2? Drinking a bottle a night? Like, where are we at? Cigars, same way. It's like I smoke cigars. Oh, how often do you smoke? Well, I smoke 3 times a month. Oh, great. But a lot of us that are, cigar smokers, I smoke 2 a day. To some people, that's a lot. To other people, you're like, oh, that's about right. And then you have the thing where you were talking about. It's like, that's super expensive. Same thing with, and sorry, Ray and Sean, like the supplements. There's sometimes where I try to figure out, I'm like, how does this person have time to or finances and time to be able to, do whatever the fuck they want? I think they make around the same money as I make, and they're traveling, they're doing all this, they have all this free time, and I'm like, oh, they don't spend the time in the gym. They don't spend hundreds of dollars on supplements. They don't spend money on, healthy foods. They're just doing this. And I'm not saying there's one right way or another, but it gets to that point where it's like, that is something that you have to equate. There is a balance. So if you go too far one way or the other way, chances are there's going to be some, at the very least, losses. Mm-hmm. Of your friends, your family, whatever it is. Sometimes I think to this topic is that really too much of a good thing. I don't want you to sacrifice too much, but sometimes you making a move to something that does, and you're doing it healthy, there is a balance, but you're doing it that you will absolutely alienate some of the kind of virus people or habits in your life for a good in your life. Yeah. Shannon, go ahead. See you live.
He is now.
Well, like you were saying, Steve, a lot of those times you got to give up something to get something. That's where that balance. If you can find how to maintain both, that's always a good balance. But for me, I get super focused, hyper focused on things when I get into it.
Yeah.
To the point it kind of takes over a little bit. And I've been better in my later years to manage that. But my early years, I would, like a pit bull, I'd latch onto something. It'd just be straight down the road, no deviating, no nothing. And like you said, I would have to give up something, or
you alienate people or parts of your life.
100%.
And sometimes it's good.
Yeah. A lot of times it's bad.
A lot of times it's bad.
Well, I know one of the things I get criticized the most for, and it's primarily from family members, I get criticized for working too much, because I have two jobs.
Real thing.
I have 2 jobs plus the podcast. And so basically between those 2 jobs, I'm working 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really, get too many days off because the Tinder Box is obviously a small business. We have a small staff. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to be able to take time off, because then you're, impacting someone else's time off. Sure. But at times you still need that. And usually what I tell people when they criticize me for working too much is, I am working towards certain goals. And right now I have the ability to work like that. And hopefully then if I accomplish certain goals later on in life, I don't have to. So I work like I can now, so that way I can work like I want to later on.
So when you say that,
Just leave his mic on at this point.
when you say when you're doing the 7-day a week and you're focused and you're doing this to get to a certain goal, when is that goal? Is there a definitive year?
Are there
date,
metrics?
Metrics.
Yeah.
Are you just going to work, and then one day you're like, shit, I never took that time? Because that can be that can happen a lot.
So for me, even though I work 7 days a week, I still do the best I can to spend time with those that are important to me. And number one is my wife. So on the nights that I'm not working my second job, that's when we're spending time together. We have our ritual steak and wine Sundays. Even though I'm working Sundays now we do that a little bit later when I get home from the shop, but it's still something that we are doing that keeps our relationship strong. So it's not like I'm working 18 hours a day and I never see my wife and our relationship is sacrificed from that. I have the two jobs. So I have my main job Monday through Friday, and then the second job Friday night and the weekend. So there are still hours within that week that I can spend with people. But because that time is limited, I'm not necessarily going out to the bars and hanging out with friends or, going hanging out at someone's house, especially since like all the people I would normally hang out with are on the opposite side of town of me.
We talked about that.
I know. But
there's 2 houses for sale in the neighborhood.
Well, that's one of the goals that we're working on.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I learned this actually this week. So you're out and about and you see somebody it's doing something that you want to do, or like, how in the hell are they taking that time to do this? And you're like, damn, I hate that dude for having that life, or taking that time, or taking that vacation that you wanted to do or you would like to go on. And I learned, like, it's not a hate thing. It's an envy. And not because you envy the person. You envy that they're taking that time to do that.
Yeah, I think you can envy the fact that they are doing that and the fact that they have the means to do that. Again, it's a constant, like, it's people have to understand, I think, that it's your literal, like, minute to minute choices dictate what you are and are not able to do. And I think that's something that I'm not going to get to the whole, millennials, but it's we've all gone through that. We all want a nicer car, a nicer house. The material things, Ray's talking about the America, US thing, it's excess. But we all want to have a good and comfortable life. We all want good health. We all want good people around us. And if you don't have people around you, you want to have this good sense of mental health, right? All these things. But with that comes a mindset of, again, the minute to minute. This is every day you wake up. That I know sometimes personally that if I don't feel well, if I am depressed, if I am and having one of those low moments, which everyone deals with, and I am no exception, you have to really open yourself up to self-assessment. You have to open yourself up to listening to other people, listening to reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to people that motivate you to a point that you realize that if you want to sleep in, that's fine. But that action will come with a reaction. There's the cause and effect type of a thing.
It's the butterfly.
Butterfly effect. If you wake up super early, go to bed early, you're going to miss things at night. If you wake up super early and all that stuff, and you're one of those people that really, like, you really have that identity, like, oh, I wake up before you. That's great for you. I sleep in. That's fine, as long as you don't regret not being up hours earlier. It's this absolute every minute to minute type of thing. All of your actions will produce a reaction to it, which is great as long as you have that centering moment on a regular basis on, is it affecting me in a good way or is it a negative way? There has to be this I go back to it, is it really too much of a good thing? Yes, there is. But if you're doing it in a healthy manner, can you keep the relationships that are important to you by going all in on a business venture, on a fitness venture, on a diet venture, on a personal relationship? If you devote all of your time to a career and you lose your family, your significant other, your friends, and everything else because your actions got the results that you were looking for. If you devote all of your time to a significant other or something, someone that's important to you, and you lose friendships, you lose your job because you're putting that priority 100% in. You're all in. No questions asked. You're going to lose things. If you can do that stuff in a sense that you're going to communicate with all parties involved, including that I'm diving all in, you will be able to make it more of a healthy boundaries type of a thing where it's like, I am all in, but I can't lose this. And this is why. And if that job, that person, yourself included, that it's like, I don't want to lose my friendships. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my significant other. I don't want to lose anything. You will lose something because you now have a new priority that you've got this thing pulling you, but it can't pull you all the way because that is too much of a good thing. And at that point, I'm of the opinion that you will feel, or that other party, whether it be the job, whether it be the person, whether it be whatever else, they will be smothered and it will suffocate you. Well, thanks for tuning in tonight.
There was a lot there.
Yeah, I was waiting
There was
for the
a lot
follow-up.
there.
I need to do a follow-up on that?
No, I feel you and all that. That's why I made the career change to get back.
You did it.
To get back time to allow myself to do the things that I like to do, not in an excess way, but to give myself the opportunity to take that time and reset on a weekend. I love my camping, and it's that season now, and we just came back from a 4-day camp. Kind of kick off the season. It was amazing. The weather was okay, but that doesn't matter. You're in the middle of the woods with a fire, food, cigars, and bourbon, and good friends, and that's my reset. I'll get it in once a month usually, and that's all I really need. We'll take big trips through the summer, but whatever.
Same thing. I mean, if you went camping, you and Shannon, your lovely wife, if you guys, camped every weekend, or like all of a sudden, well, yeah, it's too much in a sense financially, or whatever it might be. You're sacrificing, with your careers, that you guys can't make the money to do that. I mean, again, there's the balance there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, everyone wants to travel all the time. That'd be amazing. Everyone wants to sit and watch Netflix all the time. Everyone wants to whatever their thing is, right? You have to in a sense, grow up and be like, well, I can only do that all the time if that starts paying the bills.
Right.
That's something like with you, Shannon, that if you have you're roaming, what's the brand of your camper?
Rome Adventure.
Rome. Have you ever tagged them in any of your posts?
Yes.
The actual @
Yes.
I think that's something that you can do on the side, that who knows what might happen. We had a guest on here who's a good friend of the podcast, AJ.
Okay.
Kazmerzak.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden he's getting some archery, support. He won a fucking truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like one of those things is like, there is a bit of a luck there, but it's like, if even in your casual hobbies, the things that you really love doing, if you put the same effort into that with the mindset that it's like, I'm not going to like necessarily retire doing this unless I pay the bills to retire doing this. But in the meantime, we're in a day and age that you can actually hopefully maybe catch the eye of someone that's like, you know, I love what these people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people frown on like the social media thing a bit sometimes. And it's like, this is where we're at.
Well,
There's nothing wrong with, you know, putting it out there. You love doing it, put it out there. Next thing you know, you might have a fucking sponsor.
Right.
Hey, next trip, literally just like, hey, the next weekend you're going out, let us know and we'll get you something as like a gift package.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Well, so,
Like Garrett, you know, tonight, same thing. Hey, you know, let's keep in touch. You know, I'll get you a bottle of this. Like,
get you a VIP experience. Of
get
the
you a
tour.
VIP experience. It's like,
well, like
because we made it known.
We have a mutual friend that is really into guns and primarily building guns.
Yeah.
And they kept tagging this one manufacturer in like all their builds on social media. And then all of a sudden that company reached out to them and told them like, we're going to just start sending you hundreds of dollars a month in gear, build whatever you want, do whatever you want with it. Just instead of initially you posting the pictures, like send them to us, we'll post them, we'll tag you. And like, so now all of a sudden that guy's not having to spend as much money on all the stuff he was buying. Now he practically has a sponsor to do that stuff.
So I think there's a lesson there. It's like, you don't get lost in that good thing. You know what I mean? You don't just get so that tunnel vision that this is what makes me happy. And you lose sight of everything else that gets you to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super important that you really, again, the balance, you stay true to what got you there, what got you interested in whatever it is, whoever it is, whatever career it is. And you take that first interview, that first experience, all of those things, that you take that high to a point that you want to get to this level of consistency. Because if you just ride that wave and all you're focused on is that wave of this good thing, again, that wave is going to get to the shore. That wave might even crash on top of you prematurely. And it's like, now you're underwater and now you got to get back up. There, I mean, it's about handling those emotions, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we keep talking about the whole balance of it.
Yeah.
Like, I think too often we're so narrow focused and narrow minded on one thing that when we start to lose some of the other things around us, we don't necessarily mind unless all of a sudden it's something that hits a little too close to home. But sometimes like, we don't realize I was losing, I spent so much of my time and energy and resources focused on this. I didn't realize all the other things outside of it that I was losing until all of a sudden I lost something big and something important to me, and then went, oh shit, now it's going to take more work to try and get some of those things back than if I'd have just maintained a healthy balance and healthy focus instead of just going all in on one thing.
Yeah, I agree completely. I look at this as that when things are going well for you, you are very easily susceptible to taking things for granted.
Oh, absolutely.
So the things that are in check, you like, oh, these are in check, so I don't need to pay as much attention to it. So that in a sense, it's that whole like, squeaky wheel gets the grease. So what I'm working on gets my attention, and the things that are doing well, they're doing well. Well, they're doing well for a reason up to that point. If you put that grease on the squeaky wheel, and that's what you're focused on, all of a sudden everything else behind you that you're not focusing on anymore will eventually become the squeaky wheel, and you don't know if you have enough grease for that.
Ooh, that's good. That was good.
I'm trying to like spur
That's
the
a big-ass
conversation. You guys
t-shirt.
just like keep like I say something and you just like stop talking. I'm like,
Well, it's
all right.
we're both sitting here going, all right, how can I bounce off of that without repeating the exact same shit that I already have or you already have?
I don't know. We can call it if you guys want. I mean, it's still pretty early, but
What's something that you've gone too overboard with in your life? I know I gave some examples. I think Shannon has. What's something that at one point in your life you went too hard, too heavy on?
For me, probably, it was, and I was able to manage it for a while. And again, sorry to Ray and Sean that like to give me shit about this, but it's like, I the fitness thing when I was committed to that, and I was eating a certain way. And I mean, I remember even going to over to family functions or holiday celebrations. And, I would bring food, I go, on a camping trip with friends and stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, we're going to be grilling out all this stuff. I'm like, no, I'll bring food. And, there was a benefit to it. But again, at that point, you can manage it, but at the same time, it's, I push people away because of that. Same thing, even this podcast, I mean, it's like, this is something you had to do. And it's like, when you have a responsibility that you've committed to, that will sacrifice other things. I look at this and this is not, to a lot of people, may not seem like a whole lot because life gets in a way, but it's about the balance, right? So, right now my schedule is I have Sunday, Monday off, right? But I'm usually doing stuff on those and I have to fit in doing stuff around the house, mowing the lawn and all that stuff. And then it's like Tuesday, not available. Wednesday, not available. Thursday evening, sometimes available. I'm playing softball again in a week or two. So now Thursday's gone. So I have Friday night and Sunday, Monday that I'm available to socialize with people. And if you don't balance that and prioritize that, I have to look at that is again, you only have a certain amount of time in a day and a week that I've made my choices to do all of this. So now people in my social circle, the Kristen who, I'm dating, it's, now it's like, when are you available? These hours. Other than that, I'm not available because I've made commitments. I've made choices. And being busy is something is there really too much of a good thing? It's like I have too much time on my hands and now I have no time on my hands because I've committed to all these things. And it's like this is a priority in my life is cultivating a relationship. Well, if we all know this, I think a lot of people know this, is that if your only free time is when you're tired from being busy and from committing yourself to either business or hobbies or whatever. And it's like, now it's like, yeah, we can spend time together. I'm not even talking about this relationship, but previous like that's one of those things. It's like, I'm just tired.
Let's just sit on the couch and watch TV.
Right. But that's not always that's quality time, but that's not 100%.
It doesn't necessarily.
Yeah. You have to find that. You have to, again, that goes back to what I was saying is minute by minute, your choices of what you do with that time will absolutely dictate what the reaction is. So I think it's a constant, there's a struggle, but it's more or less, there's no days off.
Yeah.
Really, there's no days off. And if you need that time, I will say you need to be able to accept that and say, I need a day where I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And yes, Ray, in America, we can do that.
Well,
some people can do that, but I'm just saying, like, you got to be able to say, today's my day off. I need to be by it can be an hour, it can be an afternoon, it can be a full day, but there might be a time where you're just like, I need my alone time.
When my stepfather was still alive, he was he'd been working in the church and a pastor ever since he was in his early 20s. And then, later on in life, planted a church. And, so throughout the week, he's always doing visitations with people in the hospital. He's preparing sermons, because he used to do, you have Sunday morning service, Sunday evening service, Wednesday evening service. And so he's got a plan for all of those services. And he's usually planning like a month out, but there's a lot of research and study he would do into planning each of those. And so his one day that he took off was on Mondays. And he would get people like, hey, what are you doing on Monday? He's like, nothing.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, do you want to do this? He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm doing nothing. It's not that I don't have anything to do. I am intentionally doing nothing because this is the day that I'm going to spend me.
You know where he got that, right?
I can't ask him anymore, so.
You know where he got that. On the 7th day. Even, I don't care if you're religious or not, but we all know that.
Even God took a day off.
God, literally, like, it's in fucking Genesis. And I just said fucking when I was talking about the Bible. But I'm saying, like, even God, and on the 7th day, God rested.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's like, if anyone can take anything from Christianity, that's it.
Yeah.
At some point, you bust your ass. You need a day of rest. And I don't care what that day of rest looks like for you. You can literally not leave your bedroom. You can stay in bed. You can stay in the house. You can go out and do whatever. Like, there's no commitment there.
Mm-hmm.
Ray said.
And I've talked about go ahead. You want to read Ray's comment?
No, just, Ray said, lifestyle change, Mr. Crane, it's one of those things. It's, I look at it as, it's always evolving, and there have been times, and Nate, you've been a great part of this podcast the last, few years, but there were times where I looked at this and it's like Wednesday nights is like, they used to be free. I used to play softball on Wednesday nights. I used to do whatever I wanted. And it's like, now it isn't necessarily, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but it's like, I enjoy doing this. But I also realize that it's like, I don't have Wednesday nights free anymore, because I'm doing this. So if someone wants to do something with my current job, if someone wants to do something on Saturday, I'm open to close. I work retail. This is my thing. Well, what about Wednesday night? Unless it's something like very important that I can't miss. But it's like, if you're getting together or you're having dinner with family or friends, whatever else on Wednesday night, I can't make it. I do the podcast every night. Literally, I had a conversation with hopefully our next week's guest, Duncan, who's a friend from the past, and he's, we reconnected and we never like disconnected, but we reconnected. And he thought that I did it on Tuesdays. And so we're talking on the phone and he's like, yeah, man, any Wednesday you want to hang out? I'm like, I can't. It's like actually the podcast. He's like, oh man, I thought that was Tuesdays. He already accepts the fact that I do this on Wednesdays. So now we're going to get together on a different night. And hopefully, like I said, next Wednesday, we're going to have Duncan Auten on here. And it'll be an episode for the books. I don't think, Nate, you're prepared for this.
Probably not. I heard you talk about it a few times.
Probably not. I knew him before he had a couple kids. And yeah, he'll Uber.
One of the things that doing the podcast has made me realize, and this is going back even to the first year of the podcast when I'd been on the show a few times during that first year. In my previous role with my current employer, I had such a high workload that I always felt guilty taking time for myself.
Yeah,
I felt guilty taking time off from work because I was so busy that other people were going to have to cover my responsibilities.
Yeah.
And it was a hard switch to flip to then start focusing more on taking the time that I need. My current position and the way things have gone, it's a little bit easier now for me to do some of that stuff. I just took my first week off a couple weeks ago because it was the week after the 10 event, but I could feel myself already. Even a week before the 10 event, I could already feel myself like starting to get worn down a lot easier with things.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? This is going to be a really good time to take off because I know that weekend is going to be insanely busy and I'm just going to wear myself down. And if I just keep going, then I'm not going to be able to perform at the level or at the standards that I hold myself to.
Yeah.
So I need to take time off. And literally during that week, like the first day, I delivered some firewood to a neighbor. I sanded a table and stained a table for outdoor patio, but that was it. Like I didn't do anything else the rest of the day except sit on the back porch, smoke a couple cigars, have a couple glasses of whiskey, build a fire. But then Tuesday, like I just hung out at the house and relaxed and recharged my batteries. Wednesday did the podcast. Thursday, again, just sat around the house to recharge and, kind of get that energy back. So that way, then when I show up to work, at the shop on the weekend and then at my full-time job the next week, like then I was reset a little bit. Then I was at the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad to be back at work because I wasn't doing anything, but I needed that time to not do anything.
Yeah, we all talk about retirement, right? Same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of those things like, I can't wait to retire. And then like, I know a lot of retired people that are working again.
Well, my dad.
Consulting or whatever it might be.
Like my dad, I mean, even after he retired, the first thing after he retired, he, got a job as even though he'd been a driver for UPS for 28 years, he got a job, driving disabled people around to doctor's appointments and stuff like that. But then when he first got on with that company, he told him, he's like, look, this is what I want to work. This is how many hours a week I want to work. And when they started trying to take advantage of him being retired and put more hours on him, he's like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
You got nope, this isn't what I signed on. This isn't what I want to do. I'm retired. I don't have to do this. I'm out. And so then he, got another part-time job, 2 days a week, pays for his golf and cigar money.
Yeah. Self-realization there, right? I mean, that truly is it. Shannon, I want to turn to you one more time here. You and the missus are getting ready for yet another life change is the goal, right?
Yep.
Is he live?
Yeah, he is.
All right.
I did not unmute him.
All right. So this is, I think, very pertinent to you so the topic tonight is there really too much of a good thing? And Shannon talked about earlier that the fact that you like to get away and you are flirting with and preparing yourself, you and the missus, to get away permanently.
For a little while, yeah.
For at least a little while, but are you worried about this?
Yeah, there's anxiety to it. Absolutely.
So you're selling your stuff, you're getting out of the condo,
mm-hmm.
and you're going to take your weekend ventures of getting out and camping and doing all your stuff, and you are looking at
living it full time.
Yeah.
So we're probably here at the end we're in the process of selling everything. We'll be out of the condo at the end of this month. Yeah, some friends are putting us up for the next 4 months, rent free. God bless them. And so we're saving all our nickels and dimes and pennies, and I'll be buying an RV, a Class A motorhome.
Nice.
here.
Sean Anderson said he's got a place for you if you need.
Perfect, dude. I'll take any spot we can get.
Got a
But,
cul-de-sac out back here.
Yeah, so probably August, September, I'll be purchasing that. And then by the end of this year, beginning of next year, we'll be on the road.
Nice.
So it's something we talked about, and it's really spurred last year. We went out to Montana, spent almost 2 weeks out there with my buddy Scott, romping around South Dakota, Montana, Yellowstone, and we got back to the house, and like we didn't want to even go in the door. We didn't want to get out of the truck. And
Yeah.
we're like, man, this is something we could really do. We love that lifestyle of being out. We don't need much to live, you know what I mean? And so we thought about it, and why do we want to wait until we're 70 to go live this life when I can't hike, I can't climb anything?
Yeah.
I want to sit around when I'm 70. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we want to enjoy this next part of our life. If it's a year, 2 years, whatever it's going to be, just to go and have an adventure, see the United States, and take in all the wonders that the U.S. has, and that's where we're at with it right now.
Do you think you would have been able to do this or do that if you were in your previous career?
God, no, hell no. So barbering has afforded me the opportunity to take risks and chances. And when I got into the barbering game, I always saw myself as a traveling barber. This is what I like to do and go out.
Roaming.
Roam. And so I've been flirting with things and, doing guest spots at different barbershops across the United States. Then I'm going to try to set up a thing where I can cut people at camps and just get to know their life stories. And
there's a barber on TikTok. I don't know if you ever saw that
Vic
person.
Lenz. I know exactly who you're talking
Where
about.
he just walks up to people
Little young
randomly.
dude.
And he's like, hey, can I give you a haircut? Whatever. And then he's just like you in a sense where it's like, then you have a conversation with that person, stranger completely, but someone's there videotaping it. And
there's a lot of life lessons.
Yeah.
If you listen, of course you've seen it, but
I have.
The life lessons that you get out of that little 2-minute, whatever the video is, to me I love that stuff. I love getting to know people. I love hearing their story, how they got to where they are in life, how to, right to that point that we met, what brought you from A to B, where we're sitting there having this conversation.
100%. But I think here's the big thing for this is I think we probably should round out part 2 here a little bit, but you also have to have that mentality that I'm not saying copy that person, but it is something that if you want to have a balance of necessarily doing what you want to do, your lovely missus is working on getting a remote job that she can do whatever. So there's financial, freedom there on that half. But if you don't have your clients, doing what you're doing, there is a mindset there that it's like, okay, well, maybe I can work for tips. I can do it locally.
Yeah.
But you have the tools where roaming barber can be on Instagram, TikTok, and all the negatives that are associated with some of the social media shit these days.
Right.
You can use it the same way where it's like, oh, that's fine. Well, honey, like you come out and you videotape me. Here's my phone, like just roll it out, and then in your free time, if you can get that Wi-Fi or the internet connection, you can edit it on a laptop, whatever. You can do all this stuff, and then you put it out there. Now all of a sudden, I'm not saying you're gonna be the next, was it Vic Blends?
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily gonna be that. You're gonna be the new roaming barber.
Yeah, I'm not looking to be anybody but me. And
but it's letting people, you have the capability of taking that work ethic of doing what you're doing, and you're not just doing it for free. You can do it for free, but I feel like we're in the age anymore, and like even doing this podcast, we can hang out in the garage, the 3 of us right now, and like I can do a FaceTime call with Garrett and be like, hey, what are we drinking tonight? You know what I mean? No one else gets anything from it. And Sean Anderson, he commented when I was talking about that, is like, we appreciate you giving us your Wednesday nights. That's the whole point. is that
Right.
it is a commitment, putting your time and effort into it, but there's a reason for it. You want to, first and foremost, you want to affect that person, but then there's so, like, being a barber, where you're at right now, when you switch careers, you've had so very impactful conversation with people
Yeah.
that that would identify with so many other people, but they're not in that chair. They're not sitting in the next chair over.
Right.
But those people that are like, you guys are having this interaction, if you put that same work ethic into it and say, this is a sharing moment, that you can actually monetize it. But first and foremost, you can affect so many people. Same thing with this podcast. It's like, we can affect a couple hundred, couple thousand, whatever it is, but doing it every week is like, it goes back to, and Shannon, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think the same reason you come over here every week when you can, if you get that comment from someone that you never met before, and they're like, dude, I really love what you had to say.
Yeah.
And that really hit home.
Prime example today, one of my good friends, he came in and he was my first haircut of the day. And we were just kind of talking about this little subject. And he just stopped and he just looked at me and he was like, dude, you're going to do big things. He's like, I see you doing the things that you want to do, and you have the heart for people, and it will come through. And it like brought me to tears. I'm like, damn, dude.
Yeah.
Like, he sees it in me, and it's hard for me to see it sometimes because, you know, when you can't see your own stuff a lot of the time, so someone has to call it out of you. And he was calling it out of me, and I was like, shit, because I've had a lot of anxiety with this right now.
Yeah.
Because
Which you should.
I spent the last 3 years changing my career, changing my life. I've built an incredible clientele, and now I'm stepping away from it almost to start over again. But as scary as it is, it's so exciting too.
I was listening to a person, Alan Watts. I don't know if anyone knows that name, Alan Watts, but it was something that you're talking about right now, Shannon. It's super fascinating to me. Is, you know, he was talking about the fact that very, very literal. You put all this effort out there on who you want to be, and the simple fact that he was talking about the fact, like, you can't literally, like, necessarily touch two fingers together at certain points, you know what I mean, unless you put effort into it.
Yeah.
But what you were just saying right there, everything you're doing, and I'm sorry for everyone that doesn't really follow this type of mindset, but it's you can't literally see yourself. You can't see your face. You can't see your eyes. You can't see your efforts unless you look at the other people that are being affected by it, or by looking in a mirror. I've said it on the podcast before when I was on, like, years ago, where it was like the fact that it was like I was having a serious conversation and I found myself in front of a mirror, and it recentered myself, and it gave me more confidence because that is what I was trying to portray. And then all of a sudden I caught myself in a mirror, and all of a sudden that conversation went so much better and so much more steadfast in what I was trying to portray. And what you're saying tonight is the same thing. Everything you're doing, you see the reaction of people around you, but you will never absolutely be able to see yourself in the eyes of someone else.
Right.
And it's so impactful that if you're doing all of this, if you're trying to have that impact on people, and you are in a sense selfless, but at the same time you want to make sure that you're taken care of. So then again, you're a little bit selfish, but it's I implore everyone to do this at some point when you're talking to someone. If you have a reflection of yourself On the phone is easier, right? But in person, if there's a reflection of yourself, look at yourself delivering the message you're trying to deliver, and you will absolutely cater to that party differently when you look at yourself catering to that person.
I mean, how many times have in the 4+ years that we've been doing the podcast, how many times do we get a listener, send us a message outside the podcast, appreciating the topic that we talked about, or it was something that they were going through, and we said something that had an impact on them because then it brought something into a different light. And sometimes we sit there and we get so stressed out about doing the podcast, but then when someone comes up to us and says something positive about that, like we kind of have that, that makes it all worth it type of thing. Like it make
100%.
The thing I like in the cigar shop is I love it when someone comes into the shop and they ask for a recommendation, and then they sit there and smoke that cigar that we recommended to them. A lot of people, like the one customer that came in a few weeks ago that wanted 4 different cigars to pair with 4 different bottles of whiskey. Like I told that person, like, hey, like take pictures of those pairings and come back in and let me know, how those actually worked out. When a customer asks me for a recommendation and I recommend a cigar and they sit in the shop, typically when they're like halfway through that cigar, I'm going to go back up to that customer and ask them what they think of that cigar. And I love it when that person says, oh, this is absolutely what I was looking for. This is a fantastic cigar. It's a great recommendation. Like that gives me a lot of joy because that means I'm doing something right. Like that person had a need and I recommended something that fulfilled that need. That means I'm doing my job properly. And that gives me a sense of self-accomplishment as well.
So I'm going to say this. Let's roll into closing remarks, and Shannon, you can be a part of this. Is that is there really too much of a good thing? What you're talking about, Nate, Shannon, even me. I mean, I feel like you can possibly and likely get caught up in the moment. And to that topic, that point is that you will lose sight of what is absolutely exciting to you about that good thing. You're rolling with it. And I think this conversation, and there's something, Ryan Jones, Charlie, Sean Anderson, all these people are talking about it. Is like, it's really cool to see people reflecting on this. Is that it's the absolute reflection. Is the fact that if you had this mirror in front of you the entire time that you're actually trying to serve other people, make people happy, you feel that validation. I feel as though that, and let me know what you think. If you had the outside eyes looking at you, would you react the same way when things are going well? Or would you have this, in my opinion, I think that you need to have this self-realization, the self-assessment. You need to take the moment to have this look inside yourself. But there is that external part, is that we would not be able to look and see what other people see, literally physically, if we didn't have mirrors. Because we had no reflection on what you see. We literally were not given that point. That brought up that person I listened to, is that, it's super like, philosophy style, whatever, but it's like you wouldn't be able to have that reflection if you didn't have something that you could actually see yourself saying these things and doing the actions. No one's taking pictures of you. You just went through your day and you did what you thought you did. And then you literally have to judge your actions on other people's reactions.
Well, a great social experiment is, in the day and age of pictures and selfies, there's not a person that can take a picture, or if you sitting here taking a picture, let me see that real quick. Is that a good? you have to see if
I
it's
don't like how I look in that picture.
exactly. But can you sit back and let somebody take that picture without like, oh, I got to see if I look stupid? Because that's yourself doubting everything about what you look like, what you think you were thinking about.
You're right on, man.
You know, and that's a big thing. I struggle with that. One thing
You look great. You look
thanks,
great.
buddy.
Yeah, how many of us walk out of the shower, look at ourselves in the bathroom mirror, and go, "Oh God"?
Well, you talk about
That
the
should be
mirrors.
motivation.
You
Absolutely.
talk about the mirrors.
There should be mirrors everywhere.
We have the huge mirrors in the barbershop. And the craziest thing is, I don't usually turn people towards the mirror. I always turn them away. I noticed when I would turn people towards the mirror, they would never look at themselves.
Really?
They'll never look. They'll always
While
look.
you're cutting,
When it's
Yeah.
all done, you turn them around though.
I'll turn around and they'll
What do you
look,
think?
They'll look up like, yeah, that's great, and they'll put their head back down. I'm like, it's a phenomenon. It's blowing my mind.
That's what we're talking about, though.
So
That's
now
where we're at.
I intentionally turn people towards the mirror, and then I get to talking, and I break that whatever doubt they're having, what we're going through here in the mirror. It's the wildest thing. And if you can get their mind off of what's going on in the mirror and just about the conversation, their face change, the demeanor changes.
Why do you think that is? Why do they not want to look at themselves? Not trying to get too deep. I'm just saying, just in general. Like,
I think we all just doubt ourselves about who we are. Honestly, we all have that doubt. Am I that person I'm staring at in the mirror?
yeah.
What are my thoughts right now when am my cheeks too fat? Do I got 3 chins? Do I got blah, blah, blah?
Would you act differently? Not just you personally, Shannon, but would you act differently, or do you think your clients would act differently if they were constantly looking at themselves throughout their day-to-day? If they saw what other people see, do you think they would act differently? Would they up their game?
If they had to do it all day, yes. I think the initial hit, they shut down. But after 10 minutes, 12 minutes into it, you can see them relax a little into it, and they kind of just
force them into look at themselves.
They
Yeah.
get comfortable.
I have good friends of mine come in, and I know them personally. I know everything about them.
Yeah.
In the mirror, they'll look at themselves, and they'll just kind of look everywhere. They'll look at everything on the wall. They'll do everything not to look into that mirror.
That's amazing.
It is. I noticed this about a year ago, and I was like, "This maybe it's just this person." And I'll do the next. I'll do the next. And I'm
When
like,
you do
"Wow."
your roaming barber thing, when you're in the middle of the U.S. or whatever, please, I implore you to incorporate a stand-up mirror
Yeah.
in front of them. Because that guy you're talking about, the Vic, whatever, like he doesn't have that, it's like, it's the whole thing. It's like you're just talking. That's your difference.
Yeah.
There's your niche.
You're like, I'm gonna have you. Can I cut you? And then it's a matter of like, I'm gonna set this in front of you. And it goes back to that, like, it's funny, but it's a little bit reality is that you put that mirror in front of them, that Stuart Smalley thing. Remember that back in like Saturday Night Live thing where it's like, I'm good enough. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like you literally put that in front of you. Like, don't pay attention to that. We'll get to that mirror.
Right.
That I think would absolutely set you apart.
That is actually a really good idea.
Right?
Because now that I think, because sometimes, like I had a guy last summer. He hadn't had a haircut all through the whole COVID.
The COVIDs.
He let his hair grow. He was a businessman, but he was working from home. His hair was down to his shoulders. He would let his kids cut his hair every now and again, And he came in. I didn't have him facing the mirror. I cut his hair. I got him back to his business look, a nice gentleman cut with a nice fade,
Yeah.
I turned around and this dude literally wept.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I have not seen myself like this in over a year. It's shocking to me. It blows my mind.
You need to
every time.
have that reflection, literally, to have that self-reflection.
Yeah.
All right, Nate, closing remarks.
So
I got nothing.
is Really? You said it all? All right.
I said a lot.
So
I shut you guys down like what 3 times? It's like, all right, well, we'll call it.
So is there really too much of a good thing? I think yes, there is, and I think it's up to each individual person to determine where that line is. I think the biggest thing for me is don't give up the primary stuff for the secondary and tertiary things. So if
On the review and in this, you're using these like, right?
so,
Did you say the thesaurus?
so typically hobbies, like those are going to be tertiary things. Those aren't your primary focus. It's not necessarily
Explain tertiary for those that don't know what it means.
so.
Do you know what it means?
Yes. There you go. So primary would be
thanks.
your first circle, secondary is your next second circle, tertiary is your third circle. All right. So your hobbies and stuff, those are going to be kind of that outer circle. There's more stuff that
Tertiary. All right.
All right.
You use the word, use it.
I did.
All right, go
I
on.
just didn't want to keep throwing you off every time I
I'm
said
not
it.
that smart.
So-
I got it. Yeah, I know.
But no, like, so like if you have a hobby, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be, whiskey, cigars, paintball, whatever it is, like if you have a hobby, it's great to have that hobby and, be active and doing things. But when that starts taking the focus away from everything in your inner circle, that's when I think you have a problem. And sometimes people don't realize that that's happened until they lose something in that inner primary circle.
Yeah. So
like that's got to be your foundation. Like you have to have a strong foundation, and then you can build off of that. If you have a solid foundation and all of a sudden the house gets hit by a tornado, you still have a foundation that you can build back upon.
Right.
It's the same thing with who you are as a person. If you build who you are and what's important to you, and you make that the primary focus, you can add on more levels and more rooms and other things. But if you have a weak base and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm going to build a really solid attic, and you start focusing all your time and energy putting stuff in the attic, but everything below it can't support it, that house is going to fall in on itself.
Foundation.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever those good things are, there has to be a balance to it, but you have to make sure what you have at the core is solid enough to where it will, if your core is solid, you can add on and do more of those things.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a weak core and just add on other stuff, because then it's going to collapse.
Well, I was talking about like riding a wave, right? Same thing. If you're riding a wave and it is all by happen chance or luck, it's a one and done. One hit wonder. All things you guys are talking about is absolutely, in my opinion, it's very impactful to the point that it is. And I'm going to go back to some of the things, and this is sometimes where he gets to closing remarks. It's a bit of a summary. It is literally your minute to minute actions that dictate what your reaction is to that, or the results from it. Is that what you do with your day to day? It's not just today I'm going to do this. What are you doing right now? You have to be able to have conviction in what you're doing, no matter what it is, to the fact that when you build up and that big wave comes in, and is there really too much of a good thing? Yes, there can be. But if you had that base, so you're talking about foundation in the house and all that stuff, if you have that base and you're rolling with it and something starts hitting and it starts becoming a good thing, it's not necessarily a time where you just like, all right, I'm just going to focus on this. It's how did I get to this? There is a great exercise that a lot of people, a lot of businesses can do, that how did we get here is how you build off of that. It's not just like, hey, we ran a special and we had a great, sales day. That doesn't translate to long term.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I was, go back to the Sean and Ray. I had a great workout. I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it every day. Well, you'll burn yourself out. If you have a good relationship, how did I get there? What did I do getting up to that point? Because if I just roll with it, that I was like, I had this sense of this euphoria. Well, I'm just going to keep doing what I did right before that. Like literally the moment before that. It's like, no, that's not how it got there. It is, to what you're saying, Nate, it's absolutely the base of who you are as a person. Your career can benefit from it. Your relationship can benefit from it. Your health can benefit from it. It's not taking it to the extreme. So with the topic being, is there really too much of a good thing? 100%. If you ride that wave, thinking that wave will never end. It can end in this gradual thing until you get to that shore and you got to go out and do it again, or you can go like it went so well, but you have to actually paddle back out and do it again. And there are so many outside factors that you had no control over. So if you have your skill and your work ethic set, when the next wave comes in, you're ready for it. When the next wave comes in that's not that great, you still make the best of it. I really think that it's literally the fact that you are prepared for anything and you don't take anything for granted. You work out every day. You take care of yourself every day. You take care of and you make sure the people that are important to you are attended to every day. You constantly put effort into it. Literally, again, going back to what I said, minute by minute, you make those people feel so important because they are so important to you. And it all starts with you, that you wake up in the morning, and even if you're having a bad day, you look in that mirror we were talking about and you reassess, in the fact that you are the core of every action that you make. And you hope that if you want to make someone feel important, that's your next move. If you want to make sure that your job appreciates you, you do well at that, that's your next move. And with you, Shannon, you venturing out, doing what you're doing, you can't get focused on just like, I'm going to go camp every day. There's so many moving parts. And that's where it's like, I have to make sure every minute counts. And that's, in my opinion, that's the reward. Guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to Garrett, if you're listening right now, from Detroit City Distillery. Next week, I hope I have Duncan on. Nate, I don't think you're ready. Yeah, Nate over here in the garage right now. He joined us. He's got a Columbus crew. You know Duncan Naughton? Yeah, well, he might be in the garage next week.
Oh yeah.
We got to make sure we reach out to Rudy and let him know to watch.
I'm gonna sit back and let you guys talk. All right, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much, and cheers.